our advisors, presidents, and fellow Fogwangians, good evening. If you don't mind, I'll take a seat. It'll make it nice and comfortable. Okay, so today's topic is quite interesting. It's about the formulation of the precepts. It may seem a bit like a very vague and very boring topic, but sometimes it's quite important to kind of like try to investigate, why the Buddha had wanted to formulate the precepts the way he did. Why the 5 precepts? Why not the 10? Why the 3 refuges? Why not the 4? Why the Bodhisattva Precepts? Why not the Shravaka Precepts? So many things, I think the Buddha had formulated the precepts for a particular reason. So today is all about just trying to investigate and discuss. So throughout the talk, if anyone has a question, just please raise your hand, and we can have a more interactive type of session. So there are several questions which I'd like everyone to keep in mind as we try to investigate the formulation of the precepts. So first of all, why the precepts? Why do we need to take the precepts? There are so many. How many of us have taken the precepts? So the vast majority. But why do we take the precepts? In Singapore especially, Singaporeans are known to be the world's best law-abiding citizens. Their morals, they are like model citizens for the whole world to take as examples. But why? Why do we need to take precepts upon so many different laws of the country? Isn't this too restrictive? Isn't this too, you could say, suffocating? I mean, us already as Singaporeans, right, we take a lot of stride in our law, but sometimes we put more law upon ourselves by taking the precepts, but why? So these things we need to keep in mind. But the next question is something which I'd like everyone to answer instead of just ponder on, Can we find true happiness in just abiding by the law of Singapore? Can we find joy in just being a good citizen? Can we? Let me have a show of hands. Who agrees that we can find joy, like true joy, by abiding by the laws of the country? Okay, only a few people. How many people think that there is joy to be found elsewhere? Only a few people. How about the rest of us? We're still undecided. a mix of both, right? Okay, so from here we can see that we can try to think in 2 ways, Of course we can find joy in following the laws of the country. The reason why we can do so is because when everything is peaceful, when everyone abides by the law, there will no longer be crime. And because there's no crime, people can live in peace and harmony. But there's one question I'd like to ask you guys. Above the law, are there instances where people still suffer? Are there instances where people still have afflictions of the mind? Who agrees that we still have afflictions of the mind? Who does not agree that we have afflictions of the mind just after we abide by the law? No one. In the workplace, for example, we have many different types of legalized bullying. At home, we have all different types of relations which can bring about a lot of negativity. So obviously this topic is quite straightforward. It can be quite bland, but I'll try not to make it bland. But it's important to sometimes reflect on why we take the precepts in the first place. Jealousy is not under the control of the law. You could even say hatred, to some degree, is not under the control of the law. So there are several things or several emotions which are caused by societal issues which are not under the law. So there's something more we need to do, to bring true happiness and joy to ourselves. So where can we find joy? If we cannot find 100% joy in the laws of the country, then what extra can we do to find it? Does anyone have recreation? Does anyone engage in recreation? What types of things do we do for fun as Singaporeans? Come to the temple. This is a very good example of a Buddhist, This is a very honest one. Let's give him a warm round of applause. Are there any other examples of how we engage in recreation? How do we find happiness in life? Does anyone go shopping very often? Yeah, no? Or is everyone too shy to kind of like confide? Yeah? What other types of recreation do we engage in Singapore? Sorry? Exercise? Yeah. What else? Being close to nature. Okay, going to the park once in a while. Social media. Okay, social media. Bonding, social interaction. Concerts. Okay, what types of concerts? How about Sentosa? Does anyone go to Sentosa? Not really? Sure. Okay. Okay. So there are many different types of recreations in Singapore. Yeah? But sometimes what happens when we do not have the opportunity to engage in our mode of recreation? What happens then? Yeah, what happens when, just as we make a plan to go to the park, something happens at home so we cannot do it? What happens when this happens week after week after week after week? Okay? How do we deal with this kind of situation? It kind of means that happiness and joy maybe needs to be found somewhere else. Yeah, but how? Okay, how? This is exactly what the Buddha was trying to address as he formulated the precepts. Okay, so we've learned many different things. We've learned in Buddhism restrictive precepts. We've also learned, you could say, prescriptive precepts. Yeah, but all in all these precepts are meant only for one thing, and it is for the betterment of our lives. Yeah, so today's class will be put into three different perspectives. First of all, if we need to know why the Buddha had wanted to formulate the precepts, it's probably important to first come to an understanding, consensus of what the human being is all about. Only like that can we kind of like try to investigate why the Buddha had formulated the different sets of precepts the way he did. Okay? And lastly, we'd spend some time to go through the different formulations of the precepts, the 3 refuges, 5 precepts, and Bodhisattva precepts in terms of aspiration. Okay? So, the next thing I'd like to bring our attention to, and let's be honest here, what are our different suffering-inducing human tendencies? Okay? What happens when our colleague at work performs better than us? What do? We give rise to a sense of jealousy. What happens when we are wronged, when we are looked at in a different light? What happens? We feel frustrated. Yeah. What happens when our classmate says something nasty to us? We feel angry. What happens when our children do not listen? We feel frustrated, right? So, sorry? You cane them. Okay. So this is a good example of good fatherhood. Okay. Okay. Unfortunately, is caning still allowed in? Okay. Yeah. In Australia, it's already banned a long time ago. So we have many different suffering-inducing tendencies as human beings, yeah? Okay. But all these tendencies are caused by the utmost attachment to the sense of I. Okay. We think that I, me, I'm so important. I'm the center of the universe. And because of this, sometimes things which are not so painful become so painful. Why? Because I hurt, I'm distracted, I'm annoyed. You have done something wrong to me. I like, I seek, I want. But then it slowly becomes I cannot get, I cannot find happiness. Yeah, because it's all about the I. Tell me, what is the relationship between precepts and the emotional or psychological state of mind? Is there a relationship? Freedom. Okay, precepts help to bring about freedom. Okay, we'll be very shortly going into detail as to how the mechanics work. Okay, but at least we can come to a consensus that the precepts has a lot to do with psychology, has a lot to do with our state of mind. Okay. So the evil of I, how dangerous is this I? Okay, let's first of all see the human being as part of the 5 skandhas. Okay. Does anyone have a human body here? Yeah? We all have bodies. Do we have a mind? Are you sure? Okay. At least we're on the same page here, okay? So, of course, from the Buddhist, you could say psychology point of view, from the Buddhist worldview, okay, the body is consisted of 4 elements, okay? The body is consisted of, you could say, the earth element, okay, which is anything which upholds or withholds, anything that supports. Yeah, we also have water. Okay, what percentage of the body is made up of water? 70%. What happens when we forget to drink for about 3 or 4 days? 2 days. Okay, in Singapore, 2 days. Okay, what happens? We become dehydrated. What happens when we don't drink for 3 days or 4 days? We die. So this human body is no longer a body, it's a corpse. Yeah, so from here we can see the impermanence of the body. Okay, what is the sense? The sense is nothing more than, in Buddhist terms, favorable and unfavorable, you could say, senses. So it's a very general kind of category. And there's something called the neutral sense. So does everyone breathe freely? Yeah? Do you feel anything when you breathe? No. Okay, most of us forget the breath. It's quite scary, right? Although it's automated, but sometimes we forget it. Okay, but in fact it's a neutral sensation. Okay, what would be examples of negative sensations? Being in the office, sorry, bad smell, yeah. Apart from bad smell, the heat, yeah. What happens when your car air conditioning breaks down? You'll be sweating, right? And you'll be very humid, yeah. What other types of sensations do you have which are unfavorable? Sorry? Pain, okay. Any type of physical pain, yeah. What are favorable emotions or sensations? Swimming. Soothing sensations, yeah. What else? Feeling loved and appreciated, okay. Food, what else? What other types of favorable sensations are there? Sorry? Being happy? How about in terms of the external world? What happens when we come into contact with the external world? What type of emotions do we have? Soft? Yeah. Cooling? Okay. Comfortable? Full? Yeah. And just in a very comfortable state of being, right? Okay, so we have the senses. Okay, next, in terms of the makeup, we also have perception. Okay, so what happens at this level of being? Yeah. So how many times have you for the very first time seen something and don't know what it is? Yeah, I'm sure it happens all the time with technology. Yeah, sometimes we don't see things, and even for children, right? The very first time you see a cup, when you're about 3 or 4 years old, or even 2, it's very hard for us to know that this is a cup. It's because we don't have the existing knowledge base to know that, hey, this is a cup, right? It's only through daddy and mommy telling us that this is a cup, and indeed it's a metal cup, that we know, right? And there are many things in life which are very similar. Okay, we learn as we live. Okay, so in perception there are 2 types. Okay, there's the non-discerning or non-discriminating, which is, as we've mentioned, and discriminating. Okay, so we only know things because we have been taught before. We know that the president of BLAA is such and such because someone tells us. Okay, we only know that males, they have, they are meant to play a certain role in society because we are taught so, and so forth. Yeah. So many things we are taught, and before we are taught, we are not discerning. Yeah. So what this tells us with perception is there's non-discerning and discerning. Okay. And the next one is volition. Okay. Although we may see things, we know things, we don't stop there. Sometimes we attach emotions. For example, for men, SK2, a bottle of SK2 may mean more expenditure, okay? More wasting money, okay? But for ladies here, I'm sure it means the key to living at 21 forever, okay? So there are many things like this. Okay, these things may seem technical, right? It is for sure technical, but it has a lot to do with our lives. Okay, and soon we'll see how the precepts come into being. Okay, but volition, we have many emotions that we attach to daily tasks. Okay, students, when we have exams, exams are none other than testing to see how much knowledge we have retained from the classes, how much we have given back to the teacher. Okay, and but many times we attach emotions to these actions or to these phenomena. Okay, so this is when things start going wrong. Okay, things which are not so necessarily, you could say, unwholesome or unfavorable become so. Okay, so this is all in the workings of the mind. Okay, next we have consciousness. Consciousness is nothing more than the basis of the other four, you could say, skandhas. Okay, so before continuing, I don't think I even have explained what the skandhas are. Okay, the Buddha actually taught the 5 skandhas as a way for people to see how the body and mind interact with one another. Okay, so it's you could say the body and mind culmination. Okay, and these 5 skandhas are what makes up the human. Okay, not just one element, but the entire 5. Just with the example of the human body, you just need to lose out on one condition, and the body is gone. Okay, so we can see from here that the 5 skandhas are nothing more than just causes and conditions, different conditions coming into being. Okay, but then where is the I? Where is the I? Where can I find the sense of I from the 5 skandhas? Where is me? Where is you? Where is they? Okay, these are questions we can start asking ourselves. Okay, because the 5 skandhas can be a bit difficult to grasp at first, the Buddha has given a very good analogy. Yeah, the body is like what? The body is none other. So form is body, right? Okay, so it's none other than the froth that accumulates in the river when you have different kind of like you could say flows, and this type of froth that accumulates, it will remain there for a while until the river flow becomes too great for it and it disappears, it dissipates. Yeah? So what this shows is the body comes into being because of different causes and conditions. But with the lack of just one condition, the culmination of bubbles will disappear. Okay, so you can see that from here, the impermanence and the transience of life. Yeah? All of us here in Singapore live a very comfortable life. Okay, but there are those countries where war is permanent. It's something which happens all the time. Okay, so losing your loved ones has become the norms of life. Okay, so from here we can see that life is impermanent. Yeah, with sensations, has anyone ever tried to drip drops of water into a cup? Yeah, with existing water. What happens when that drop of water hits the surface of the cup of water? Ripples, right? So this is exactly how sensations work. They're just in the spur of the moment. But unfortunately, sometimes we attach emotions to these sensations and we kind of amplify what they actually are. Yeah? And with perception, the Buddha used a very good analogy for perception. It's just, have you ever driven on a very hot day and just stared at the bitumen in front, the asphalt? What happens? You see vapor, right? You see like a lot of fumes. Okay? Yeah? Has anyone seen a mirage before because of this? Yeah? On a very hot day, 35 degrees, middle of summer. What happens? You may see 2 cars or even 3, or even the reflection. Yeah? So this tells us that our perception, although it's meant to see things as they are, it's meant to perceive things according to our existing knowledge base. It's always hindered by our volition. Okay? And at this particular stage, what is meant to be seen as it is seen in a distorted view, in an inverted way. So we can see how the human mind works from this, yeah? Okay, volition. Volition is just like the banana tree. Has anyone ever peeled a banana tree? Has anyone tried to peel a banana tree? Okay, Probably even for our younger generation, if you don't come from a kampong, I don't think it's possible for you to experience this, yeah? But if you peel those banana leaves one by one, you realize that there's more layers underneath, right? So it's very hard for you to get to the core of things, okay? This represents our mental habits, our habitual tendencies. Yeah, so if a person has a habit of being angry, right, then unfortunately, if it repeats itself over and over again, unfortunately, it's just like this banana tree. It will add layer upon layer upon layer until you cannot find the core. Okay, you cannot find the core of your innate goodness. Okay, so this is the analogy given to volition. And for consciousness, the consciousness is just like the magician. He is responsible for causing the illusion of life, everything that is false. Although we know that this consciousness is none other than just the magician, we are still fooled by him. Yeah, so we can see that the 5 skandhas bring about a lot of suffering. Okay, so back to the question: where is the I? Where can we find the I? Is it in our thoughts? Is it in our bodies? Is it in the transient moments in our minds? What can you grasp? What is yours? What can you totally and surely say, that's mine? Is there anything? Not really, because everything is in a constant state of flux. Yeah? Okay, so basically, when there is the concept of I, there's also the concept of you, they. Okay? So why do we have locks on our doors at home? Why do we have policemen? Yeah? Think about it. We're getting to the very fundamental basis of human tendencies to see how the human being works. Yeah? How many of you do not lock your doors at night? No one, right? Why do you lock your doors? I thought we're all human beings, we're all the same. Yeah, there's no difference between you and I, so why do we need to lock the door? Why do you need to lock the car? Have we thought about this? Yeah, these are questions which are quite interesting, yeah? Quite interesting. There are still several countries in the world where this happens. There's no need to lock the door. There's no need to lock up the car, yeah? But this is in a society where people see each other as brothers and sisters, okay? But when we start thinking about I in the sense that because there's I'm different from you, and I'm not the same as they. There's no we. And because of this, suffering begins, okay? So it becomes much so that when there is the I, there are things which we seem pleasurable to ourselves, which we perceive as pleasurable to ourselves, okay? Who likes durian here? Who likes durian here, okay? Who does not like durian? Who does not like durian? Only one person, 2 people. Only 2 people, yeah? Okay? For most Westerners, durian is so smelly, they could even puke, okay? But for Singaporeans, it's like treasured fruit. It's the best thing ever because it only happens once a year, yeah? So we like it. But for another person, it's a different story. They don't like it. So we have likes, we have dislikes. Things we like, we try to obtain, okay? Things we do not like, we try to distance ourselves from, okay? Be it the annoying classmate next to us, okay? Be it our colleague who always does better than us and so forth, yeah? So we always have situations where we do not find a balanced sense of happiness because of this, yeah? And because of this, we need to be able to understand the functioning of the mind, how this attachment to I forms, and how it affects our quality of life, okay? We always say that the biggest enemy is oneself, yeah? This is true. This is true. Okay, very soon we'll see why. Okay, first of all, we have subconscious tendencies. Okay, these tendencies are none other than things to do with the attachment to the notion of self. It is also greed, anger, ignorance, pride and doubt, jealousy, and so forth. Yeah? Once we have these innate tendencies, all it needs is a trigger. For example, if we have a type of inkling for spaghetti, every time we see spaghetti, we will be filled with joy. Okay? But the moment you finish your spaghetti, and the moment you leave the dinner table, You won't have any sensation anymore because it's gone, right? But 1 week later, you'll be thinking about it again. Okay, so we have likes and we have dislikes. And when we come into contact with the outside world, the outside phenomena, we have active mental afflictions. Okay, this is when we actively give rise to emotions triggered by these subconscious tendencies. Okay, and these sometimes are very strong, very strong. Has anyone been so angry that you haven't been able to eat dinner? Has anyone been so angry that you have not been able to smile for the day? Yeah, has anyone been so angry? Yeah? So anger is very powerful, it's very scary. Same as greed. Have we ever been so greedy for something that we cannot forget about it day and night? We just think about that one thing. Okay? One thing or one person. It's exactly the same. Okay? Sometimes our greed also occupies our mind so much that it becomes troublesome. Yeah? So because of this, we sometimes give rise to actions. We entertain our mental afflictions by flowing through with our bodies and with our speech. Yeah? And as such, we are just reinforcing this attachment to I. We're justifying the sense of I. Okay? And how do the precepts work along with the attachment to I? Yeah? Okay, we know that we have greed. Okay? Okay, anything like wanting, seeking, even justice. Justice is a manifestation of greed. Yeah, because we have an ideal that we have in our minds and we like everything to go as we like. So even justice is a type of greed. Okay? But what happens when we cannot obtain what we seek out for or what we want? We give rise to something called anger. So with anger, it's also anything to do with jealousy, anything to do with aversion, anything to do with you could say petty-mindedness or cruelty, ill will. Yeah, so anger is very, very awkward. Yeah, in Buddhism, there is a difference between anger and greed. With greed can lead us to do many wonderful things. Yeah, but anger in itself is none other than just a self-destroyer because it does nothing but ruin one's moral standing. Yeah. Okay, and everything is a result of ignorance. So let's read the next line. So it's actually none other than just the active misunderstanding of the way things are. Yeah, the way things are. We don't see that the body and the mind are constantly in a flux of change, in a state of flux, so that we want to grab onto things. We want to grab onto emotions. We want to grab onto people. Yeah? So the next time your boyfriend or your girlfriend says to you, I love you, don't believe it too much. Because the way he loves or she loves you at that particular moment will never be the same. Because of the different causes and conditions, that love will change. Okay? Although we can enjoy it, appreciate it, but don't become too overly attached. Otherwise, when it's gone, you're destined for pain. Okay, so many times we fool ourselves with this, yeah? Okay, so many times it's good to see the bigger picture in life, yeah? Okay, so there are many problems which are caused by greed and anger. So let's have a look at greed. Let's read it together. Okay, with greed, it can be a very subtle thing, right? It's something which sometimes is not easily discovered. Okay, and this is especially true in the corporate world. Okay, just one instance of greed can allow us to make a decision which brings about, which is driven by vested interest, but is of no benefit to others. Yeah, so there are many times when greed can manifest itself throughout our lives. Yeah, so it's important to keep in mind what happens when this arises. Yeah, so why does greed lessen our moral standing and our moral state of mind? Yeah, in this day and age, it's all about instant gratification. Everything needs to be done here and now. Everything is to be had at this present moment. Yeah, so what happens? People, especially young children, the 90s era children, yeah, they never know what it means to wait. They don't know the beauty of waiting. Everything has to happen at this moment, and if it doesn't, they give rise to anger. And sometimes even anger to the point where they commit crime. Okay, especially in Taiwan, there's been stories of children murdering their parents because they did not provide them with an iPhone. Okay, this is very crazy. And this is all driven by greed. Okay. Next we have anger. Okay, so anger. Why is anger such an obstruction to our practice? Has anyone, for example, in the morning, because of one silly incident, given rise to anger? And has that anger been able to wipe away all your joy, all your good intentions for the day? It happens all the time. Yeah. So we know that anger is very powerful. And let's have a look at the next line. So from this we know that anger is powerful. Okay. Indeed, recently there's been research done on the effects of anger. Okay. So research has been shown to prove that the flight or fight mechanism is powered by this anger. Yeah. So we usually react to situations because of fear, and because of fear we give rise to a subtle form of anger which pushes us to fight to survive. Yeah, so this was in the past. But modern human beings, as psychologists have realized, is that people already trigger their flight or fight syndrome even just with little things in life. Even just with being cut out when we drive, right? When people cut us off, or even small things like people giving us the wrong look, right? Even small things like this can trigger what would have triggered flight or fight syndromes a long time ago, like hundreds of years ago. So we're living in an era where anger pervades humanity. And as we know, there are many different health risks involved with anger, not to mention all the negativity it brings to oneself and others. Yeah, so from here we know that anger is very powerful. Yeah? So not only does afflictions happen now, and in this particular moment, okay, it also leads to future, you could say, suffering. So now maybe if we give rise to greed or anger, it will affect not only ourselves, but it'll affect those around us, especially if we take action. Okay, if we carry through with our anger or greed with our action. But next up, we have future afflictions. Okay, future afflictions are none other than the accumulation of our karma. So this brings into the scope the idea of past, present, and future. Yeah? Does anyone believe that this life ends here and nothing happens after? Does anyone think that life just finished here? Yeah? So that means that everyone agrees that life happens after this life, right? Yeah, and because it does, it means that everything we do is important. Yeah? There's always a Buddhist saying, if you want to know what type of person you were in the past, okay, just look at your life here, now. Okay, if you have done many good things, if you have done positive actions, if you have followed all the laws and rules, then of course you'd be a very happy person and with good conditions. Yeah? But likewise, if you have not done so, if you are someone who engaged in a lot of unwholesome deeds, then this lifetime it'll be very difficult. Yeah? But likewise, Buddhism does not just stop here, right? It tells us that we are in control of our lives. We can control our future, because everything we do now, in the here and now, will definitely pave the way to a future. Okay, so it means that as Buddhists, we are empowered to make change in our lives. Okay, so be it good or bad, everything is possible. Yeah. But first of all, there's one thing we need to deal with, and this is the attachment to I. The precepts, the 5 precepts may seem something like, okay, you can't do that, you can't do this, okay, but there's more to it. Okay, there's more to it. The Buddha taught all his Dharma, right? All his Dharma. No matter where it's the Four Noble Truths, Eightfold Path, what other types of Dharma have we all learnt about as Buddhists? So, in fact, you could learn no other Dharma apart from the 3 good deeds, and you'll be able to purify your body, speech, and mind. It's powerful. Yeah? And it's the easy way of trying to summarize the precepts. So it's quite beneficial, yeah? Okay, so all the teachings, regardless what they are, okay, can we agree that the purpose is to allow us to liberate ourselves from suffering and allow us to find happiness in life? Yeah? And the precepts are a very good way to realize this. It's because it's set out in a very concrete way, based on past experiences. Yeah? The Buddha himself, he set rules not because he wanted to. The Buddha was not a rules maniac. He did not just put rules because he liked it, right? I don't think anyone likes rules because it's restrictive, right? something must have happened for rules to be instigated. Okay? They are formed because we live as a community with a set of ideals that we share commonly. And we, of course, need rules to make sure that all of us, as you could say, citizens of this community, can fulfill our duty as well as enjoy a peaceful life. Okay? This is the reason why we have rules. Okay? But Buddhist rules are slightly different in a sense. Yeah? All the rules of Singapore, I'm sure you do not give rise to a sense of vow saying that, oh, I happily and fully accept the laws of Singapore. I do so from the bottom of my heart. I think most of us can agree that this is probably impossible, right? Because if you can do so, I'm sure that you could be the next Prime Minister of Singapore. Yeah? Okay, so we see that Buddhist precepts, we work from outside to inside. Okay, first of all, we have the precepts which deal with the external manifestations of our inner state of mind. Okay. Secondly, we have precepts which deal with active mental afflictions. And when we can deal with the first two, naturally, we will find some balance, and we can find a return to the, you could say, the inner virtue, which is the wisdom. Okay. So wisdom has many names. From this point of view, wisdom has the names of Buddha nature. It has inner virtue. It has emptiness. And it has all different types. Yeah? Okay, so from here we know that to deal with the subconscious tendencies, we need to give rise to the utmost mind of the Bodhisattva, the Bodhicitta. Okay, so looking at the threefold training, okay, we can slowly break up the way and learn the path to happiness. Okay. So basically, we now know that subconscious tendencies give rise to active mental afflictions, which in turn manifest in physical and mental form of verbal forms. Yeah, but the way to deal with these is actually in reverse order. Yeah, it's very hard to control the mind. Okay, who here feels it's easier to control the mind rather than the body? Yeah, anyone? No, it's very difficult. Yeah. The mind is too subtle. So what happens? We first of all need to train. We need to, you could say, begin with good habits of the body and mind and speech. Yes, slowly it becomes training in meditation. Okay? But Chan Master Huicheng, he mentioned a very inspiring, you could say, take on the precepts. He said that when the mind is completely still, there is no need for the precepts. Okay, from this we know that the precepts are just a way to calm the mind. But when your mind is calm, there is no longer the need for the precepts. Yeah, so this tells us that these two are hand in hand. And finally, very soon we can train in wisdom through contemplating dependent origination. Okay, so Venerable Master has a very firm stance on the precepts, and of course, the Venerable Master tells us of the benefits. So let's read the next line together. So we know from here, Venerable Master has very clearly told us that keeping the precepts not only can bring happiness and joy to this lifetime, it can pave the way to future happiness through our future, you could say, karmic retributions. Yeah. So from here we know that there is the present and the future when it comes to holding the precepts. Yeah. But the very first thing that we need to keep in mind, there is no precept in the book of rules which deviates from the idea of non-harm, avimsa. Indeed, the very first precept that the Buddha had laid down, even before he formulated the 5 precepts or the monastic and lay precepts, is none other than non-harm. So imagine walking down the road seeing the Buddha and asking the Buddha for precepts, and he'd just be saying something like, take refuge in the Buddha, Dharma, and Sangha, and non-harm. That's it. Simple as that. Okay? But unfortunately, because human beings, over time, they become more defiled. So the Buddha had to be very clear. Okay? It means that we have to uphold the precepts of not killing, stealing, sexual misconduct, lying, and taking intoxicants, and so forth. Yeah? And just looking at the word non-harm, it has a passive meaning and active meaning. Okay? If we want to prevent harm, it also means we need to support life. So it also means that we need to help sentient beings in many different ways, right? Okay, so from this we know that there's both the proscriptive and prescriptive element of the precepts. Okay, so let's look at Shila. Let's read the next line together. So Shila, according to many texts, many people see Shila as just external rules placed upon ourselves, yeah? But in fact, Shila is a state of being. It is the inner virtue which is the same as the Buddha. Yeah, so Shila is actually the means to the end and the end itself. So if you can fully uphold the precepts, don't think that the three trainings are sequential. They happen simultaneously. So it shows us that as long as we can uphold the precepts according to the spirit of it, then of course we can arrive at a sense of, you could say, inner peace because of this. So we're just returning to the inner virtues that we already have had a long time ago. Okay, so this is nothing more than returning to this pure state of mind. Okay, there are three different, you could say, meanings of Shila. Okay, first of all, we have the external rules, everything that the Buddha has mentioned and everything that we have learnt as Buddhists, right? Secondly, we have active moral conduct, which is to do with serving the community. Okay, you could even say realizing the 4 acts of giving, the 4 givings, and giving people convenience and so forth, yeah? So all these are active, you could say, virtuous actions. Next, of course, is, as we mentioned, the inner virtues, which are already found inside of us. Okay, so the very first precept, before Shakyamuni Buddha even said, protect life, this lifetime, in this Buddha world, right? There have been many different Buddhas, and these Buddhas have shared a universal set of precepts which do not deviate from this particular formulation. So let's read this together. Okay, we see that purify the mind has to bring sentient beings to enlightenment, right? Okay, the Theravadan version is to purify the mind. Okay, the Mahayana version is to bring sentient beings to enlightenment. Okay, but think about it. If you were a very good investor, you'd be thinking of a way where you can find benefit for everyone. Okay, so everyone has high stakes. Yeah? So if today I was just to purify the mind, it will be just benefiting myself. But think about it, if I wanted to enlighten others, it means that I myself already would have to have a level of enlightenment. Okay? So basically you're killing two birds with a stone, but of course as Buddhists we don't kill. Okay? So we can see that there are good things about making a larger vow, a bigger vow for the sake of humanity. Okay? So there are 2 separate values of all precepts. Okay? Be it the 5 precepts or the Bodhisattva precepts. Okay? First of all, we have the proscriptive precepts, yeah, which means what we cannot do or what we shouldn't do. Okay? Then we have the prescriptive precepts, which means what we need to do. Okay? What we need to actively engage in to fulfill the ultimate meaning of Shila. Okay. How many of you have found it quite amazing that as Buddhists, if you do not help people, if you do not practice generosity, this is a transgression. Yeah, this is interesting. Yeah, it means that Buddhism inspires us to be altruistic and it inspires us to be good citizens. But many people don't see this side of things, so they only see the proscriptive side of things. Yeah? So let's look at the precepts in light of progression towards the path of happiness and joy. Yeah? First of all, we have the 3 refuges. Okay, the 3 refuges can be considered taking refuge in the ultimate way towards happiness, making that first promise, making that marriage vow towards Buddhism. Yeah? So what is taking refuge in the triple gem? What are the triple gems? So first of all, we have taking refuge. It can be likened to establishing right views, correct views towards life. Okay? Secondly, we have taking the 5 precepts. Okay? Stopping all the evil and giving rise to all the good. And soon there's the Bodhisattva Precepts. Okay? So Bodhisattva Precepts is a little bit different from the 5 precepts. The Bodhisattva Precepts are all about the mind. Okay, with the 5 precepts, if you kill with your physical body, only then do you commit this crime. Okay? But as a bodhisattva, even the intention of killing is enough. Okay, so we can see that it's trying to perfect the human being. Okay, we're trying to perfect the human being. So what is the very one thing that Venerable Master Xing Yun, our master, you could say, enforces upon us when we take refuge in the Triple Gem? What does he make us say? 我是佛. Okay, why does the Venerable Master ask us to say that I am the Buddha? Why? Imagine, does everyone take refuge every single day? Like when you wake up? Okay, great, this is important. Why? Because very soon if we forget that we're Buddhist, very soon when temptations come, right? Sometimes we start taking our belief, giving faith into our temptations. Okay, but if we can constantly say that I am the Buddha, I've never seen a Buddha who smokes, right? I've never seen a Buddha who steals. I've never seen a Buddha who harms people. Yeah, so we need to remind ourselves that I am the Buddha. Okay, and what does this have to do with the joy index and freedom index? Yeah, think about it. Before we mentioned that the ultimate source of all afflictions is the mind. Yeah, so this is what we're getting at. Okay, the further you go up the ladder, the closer you are to true happiness. Okay. Okay, so let's read the next line together. Taking refuge in the Triple Gems. Okay, we see that the Buddha, when we take refuge in the Buddha, we're not only taking refuge in the greatest teacher of all times, we're also taking refuge in our inner virtues, that Buddha nature of ours. Yeah? So it's just reminding ourselves that, hey, I do have something which is nicer, more wholesome inside. I just need to find it. Yeah? So taking refuge is just confirming that there is better than what there is now. Okay? So what is a refuge? What is the definition of refuge? We can take refuge under shelter, right? But what is true refuge? What is true refuge? Let's hazard an explanation. What is a true refuge? Or what do you seek in times of fear? So from this we can see that refuge, it must be something which is far beyond ourselves in terms of wisdom. Yeah, it's something which is unchanging. So no matter what the external circumstances, this refuge never changes. And it's always there for us. Yeah, so of course when we take refuge in the Buddha because he's never changed. He's been like that 2,500 years ago and he's still the same now. Right? The Dharma has never changed. It's still the same Four Noble Truths, Eightfold Path, and so forth. Yeah? Nothing has changed. Okay? And we see that the Sangha, the community of monastics, haven't changed. We have the same haircut. It's been around for 2,500 years. It's quite fashionable. It's never out of trend. Okay, we have similar clothing, although from the Theravada tradition, and now it's a little bit different, but same color. So nothing much has changed. Our rules are the same. Yeah, so we can see that there is nothing which has changed that much. Yeah, so we know that when we take refuge, it's important to do so in the right thing. Okay. To take refuge in the refuge in the Triple Gem means that we take refuge in the truth itself as well. Okay, but before we can take refuge in the truth, we need to know what is not the truth. Yeah. So first of all, we can see that there are 5 erroneous views that human beings come into contact with. Okay. So the very first one is what we consider the view that this body and mind belongs to us. Okay, belongs to us. Let me ask you guys a question. Let me pose a hypothetical question. One day, if I don't drink for 3 days, I will die. Okay? Who does this body belong to? Does it still belong to me? No. If I'm buried underground, this body will become nutrients for the plants. It will become nutrients to fertilize the soil. Okay? It will turn into different things after the plant grows out of it. Okay? And soon a body which decays in different ways, it may turn into stone, it may turn into different, you could say, substances. Yeah? So there is not one thing which really belongs to us. Which thought belongs to us? Okay, one thought that happened now will never occur again. Okay, so there's not much point trying to say that, hey, that thought is mine, yeah? So we can see that everything changes, yeah? The second erroneous thought is that there are extremes. So the extremes in the sense that, okay, life ends at this particular lifetime. So when we die, when we're buried 6.5 feet underground, that's the end of us. Okay, there's no more life after that. Okay, but on the other side of the spectrum, some people may think that life is eternal in the sense that life does not end. So this person will become lax and you could say lazy in his practice. So either way, if we do not believe in cause and effect, or if we believe that life never ends, then we will not have the drive to improve ourselves. Yeah. And thirdly, we have the misunderstanding. Okay, the misunderstanding. Of cause and effect. Okay, some people think, hey, there are so many people out there who have committed grave crimes, but they are never caught by the law. Whereas there are very good people who engage in altruism, who do so much for community, but come down with cancer. Okay, why is this so? Okay, people, because of this, because of isolated examples, they may lose faith in humanity, thinking that, why should I be nice? Because good people will have it worse off than people who commit crimes. But this is not the fact. It's just a matter of time. Okay, it's just a matter of time. Okay, so people deny cause and effect, but cause and effect is actually true justice. Because you do good, you reap good. You do bad, sooner or later you'll reap it. Yeah, so it's very fair. Okay, and finally, some people have misconceptions about the way of practice. Some people see Theravadan Buddhism as inferior. Some people say Mahayana Buddhism is too worldly. Okay, they see each teaching as a flaw. But we need to realize that because we live in a different era now, it's very hard for us to be dogmatic about particular tenets of Buddhism. We need to see the bigger picture and return to the original intention of the Buddha, which is to bring upon happiness and joy to others and relieve suffering. Yeah? Okay. And finally, it is the attachment to practices which do not lead to enlightenment. Okay. For example, there are people who take weird precepts, especially back in the time of the Buddha. People thought by, you could say, mortifying the body, self-mortification. Okay, one person can liberate themselves from, you could say, the shackles of samsara. But does this happen? Unfortunately not. No matter how many hot coals you walk on, I'm sure you will not find the answer to enlightenment. Okay, so there are 5 views which cause us to have misconceptions and we deviate from the truth. Okay, let's read the next line together. Okay, so this analogy is very clear. What is the very first thing that we need to do as we take refuge in the Triple Gem? What happens during the ceremony? Sorry? Empty the bottle or the cup. How? What is the first item in the liturgy, in the process of or procedure of becoming a Buddhist? What's in the procedure book? Repentance. Okay. What is the difference? Now let me ask you a question. What is the difference between repentance and penitence? What is repentance? What is penitence? Okay. In Chinese, it's 忏悔. Okay. 忏 is just acknowledging your faults. Okay. And sometimes you may even give rise to shame. Okay. In Sanskrit, it's called hiri. Okay. But that's probably as much as it happens. Okay. But when you hui, it means that from that day on, you vow never to repeat the same mistake. And this is the true meaning of Buddhism. Okay? We break the precepts, it's okay. But we look at it, we observe it, we see where we went wrong, and we try very hard never to do it again. Okay, so repentance is of course the very first thing we do. And we find clear conscience, we clear our conscience, right? So that we can receive the Dharma and the precepts with full purity. Okay, so this is the prerequisites for taking refuge. And also with taking refuge, it's an internal process as well as an external process. Okay? So what happens up in here? What happens up in here that very day when we make that vow in front of the Buddha that we will be better people in life? What happens? What kind of emotions come up? What kind of emotions come up? Great? Okay, any other emotions? No? Sorry, peaceful? Free? Yeah? Does anyone feel sad? Does anyone feel regretful? Okay. Venerable Miaoje is at the back. I don't think you'll dare to say anything nasty. Okay. Okay. So precepts, it's an internal thing, and according to you could say Indian sources, right? When you take refuge, there are 3 emotions which are requisite. Okay. I'm not sure whether we have these emotions as we take the refuge. Okay. First of all, we need to have confidence. We need to have confidence in the Buddha, Dharma, and Sangha, knowing that, hey, this is the way for me to find happiness and joy. Yeah. But secondly, we need to have reverence. Yeah, because anything good is found on the backs of humility. So when we are like humble, of course we are able to find the niceties of life. Okay. So this happens when we're humble. And lastly, we need to have love. Okay, we need to have love for the Buddha, Dharma, and Sangha, and we need to have love for all the good things in life in terms of all sentient beings. Okay, so this love becomes love for myself, love for my loved one, love for the family, and it expands to love for the community and all sentient beings, regardless whether we know them or not. Okay, so one day you find that this kind of love becomes so great that it turns into a love where all brothers and sisters in the world are the same. Okay, so this is a point in time when you realize that, hey, okay, I've achieved this, yeah? Okay. And it also serves an external process, yeah. Now that all of us have taken the refuge under the Triple Gem together, if one of our brothers or sisters accidentally has a lapse in morality, soon you'll realize that they'll be like, hey, shouldn't we be doing something else instead of this? Yeah, so you have the social elements of the precepts. Okay, so taking refuge is something which is both internal and external. Okay. And taking refuge is something that we need to do on a daily basis. Yeah, we need to remind ourselves, hey, I'm here on a mission. I'm here to improve my life. Yeah, so let's read the next line together. It's from the Yogacara Precepts. So the true purpose of Shila has been very nicely summarized by Venerable Master. He says that it's not enough just to prevent wrongdoing. Shila is actually Buddhist practice, but not many people see this. And today's class is all about talking about the formulation, why the Buddha formulates his precepts this way. Yeah, it's an easy way to follow, the way towards happiness. Yeah? Okay, so basically all these teachings are following Shila. Okay? The Shila needs to be life-affirming, humanistic, and also flexible in this modern world. Yeah? So what this means, it means that the precepts need to be flexible, holding on to the true intentions and spirits behind the precepts. Okay? So the very first thing you need to do as a Bodhisattva, you need to make a particular vow. Okay, looking at it from the outset, we're just saying that, hey, we need to protect sentient beings. Okay? But what it means, what it continues to say further on in the Lotus Sutra, our every thought needs to be occupied with the salvation, liberation of all beings. Okay, what happens for one day? Let's try this probably tomorrow. Okay, imagine if there's one day where you totally are concerned about others instead of yourself. Always concerned about every single person around you and not yourself. What type of feeling will you end up with when you return home? It will be a very joyful emotion. You can try it, it's amazing. The reason why is because we're bringing the attention from I and bringing it and encompassing the entire human race. So it works on different levels, okay? So if anything bad happens, it's no longer I'm getting hurt. It's no longer I'm doing it just for me. I'm losing out, I'm gaining. It's no longer I, it's everyone, it's we. So the power of we is something which I think as Buddhists we need to really understand, okay? So it is the ultimate antidote towards the attachment to I. Yeah. Okay, there are 4 universal vows which can really inspire us to not only just make the initial vow, but also to carry through and to make a firm resolve. Let's read this together. Okay, so we know that, hey, there's so much more than that there's to life than just me. Yeah, there's so many sentient beings that need our help. Yeah. Okay, so basically the mind of the Bodhisattva is made up of 3 components. Okay, it's the actual aspiration towards enlightenment. So this is what we consider Bodhi, the Bodhicitta. right? Secondly, we have great compassion, or you could say unconditional compassion. Okay, and thirdly, we need to have expedient means. And this is where things get interesting. This requires wisdom. Yeah? So it means that as we live in this life, we need to be able to utilize our wisdom to be able to not only fit into this society, but not look like a fool as we practice Buddhism. Okay, so this requires three different aspects. Yeah. So this is why, as a Bodhisattva, it takes a lot of training. It takes a lot of getting used to. Yeah? So the Bodhisattva precepts are made of three parts. It's called the three cumulative precepts. Okay? So basically you have the proscriptive, prescriptive, as well as the vow to liberate sentient beings. Or in other words, the vow towards enlightenment. Okay? Let me ask you guys a question. Would it be more of a sin to break your proscriptive or prescriptive precepts, or is it a bigger sin to break your Bodhisattva, your Bodhi precepts? The Bodhi precepts as in the vow to become enlightened and save sentient beings. Which one is worse? Breaking the vow. Once you have committed to saving sentient beings, if you turn back on this, it's the same as giving up. Okay, so that's why we say it's okay to break the small precepts, but never break one. And that is to regress on your vow towards enlightenment for the sake of benefiting others. Yeah, so we can see that the Bodhisattva precepts is very powerful. Okay? But the thing is, before you can take the Bodhisattva precepts, you need to take one of the other sets of precepts for the other 7 classes of disciples. Okay, so for example, the monastic, the lay. With the monastic, there's the Shramanarika, okay, 6 samana. You have the bhikkhu and bhikkhuni precepts. And then for lay, you have the upasaka, upasika, which are the same. Okay, and then you have the 8 fasting precepts and so forth, right? So basically, you need to have taken one of the precepts or set of precepts before you can move on to the Bodhisattva precepts. And it happens so because we need to have some grounding in some of the basics before you can move on. So it makes a lot of sense, yeah? So let us examine for a moment the upasaka precepts, which is what most of you who have taken the Bodhisattva precepts would follow. Yeah, it's very interesting. Let's probably not read every single one, but let's look at the one highlighted in red. What is the Fourfold Assembly? Are we part of the Fourfold Assembly? Yes, yes. The Fourfold Assembly means Buddhist monks and nuns, as well as upasakas, upasikas, which are lay Buddhist men and women. Yeah, why is it a crime to speak of the faults of fellow Buddhists? Okay, we're stealing away, or we're taking away people's faith in the Dharma, in the Triple Gem. Okay, so it's very dangerous. And there's another element to this, right? If every day we always look to other people's faults, sometimes if we look closely and introspect, it's actually just criticizing the reflection of our own shortcomings. To be able to see criticism in others means that we already have this innate, you could say, flaw in our virtue, right? To see jealousy means that we're jealous ourselves. To see anger, it means that we have anger ourselves. And to slowly bring our attention from the outside world to our inner world and work on our own afflictions, this is what it means to be, to be Buddhist. And very soon, because we can do so, true joy will slowly emerge. Yeah? So we can see that the Bodhisattva precepts work at very different levels in terms of mind training us to be joyful. So the Bodhisattva precepts in this case can be said as the mind precepts. Yeah, the mind precepts. Okay. The next set, look at compassion in action. Okay, the one about caring for the sick, the very first one, okay, number 3. It really means like you cannot turn your back away from those who are sick and those you don't like. Okay? I'm sure most of us here are filial children. If our parents are sick, I think we don't feel kind of like put off by looking after them at hospital, right? Okay, but some people will. Some people will feel that, hey, my parents are like dying, they look bad, I don't want to go. Right? But this is reality. There are some people like this. But how can we turn our backs against people just because we feel a sense of distaste? Right? This is out of compassion. Secondly, not traveling alone in danger. Okay, this is a preclusive precept. Okay, as we mentioned, a Bodhisattva is concerned about the cause. So if today we know that we're going to a dangerous place, we're offering people the opportunity to engage in crime. Okay, so we cannot do that. Okay, let me ask you a question. If someone stole $10 from you, okay, if someone pickpocketed $10 from you, whose fault is it? Whose fault is it? Both. Why? Because we've given the opportunity. So this is how the Bodhisattva thinks. Yeah, it's about looking at the cause rather than just the effect. Okay, not keeping cats. Why not? Okay, this will put down the pet industry. Okay, but think about why not dogs, right? What is the characteristic of felines? Exactly. So cats are known to be scavengers, and they're known to be predators. Yeah. So we know that they kill. And by keeping cats, we're also giving the opportunity for them to kill. Yeah. So this is also something we need to keep in mind. And the next one is not providing assistance when need be. Okay. So this is very similar, but this is more general. Okay. The next set talks about, you could say, the precepts which allow us to break through the attachment to I. Okay. The very first one, precept number 6, is very similar to the major precept. Okay. But it's also a minor precept. One talks about the fourfold assembly, one just talks about precepts in general. Okay? Back in the Buddhist time, there are other schools of Buddhism, not just Buddhism. Okay, so other schools of religion also have precepts. Yeah, so any person who's trying to practice the way, if you slander them, then of course it's not good. Okay? And secondly, paying respect to elders. Okay? Why do Chinese people place a lot of emphasis on respecting our ancestors and elders? Why? Why? It means that we are not on top of the world. It means that we have come about because of causes and conditions, because people before us have paved the way. And without them, this will not happen. Okay, but if we forget that, we become arrogant, we become self-centered. And this is a very good way of killing the attachment to I. So everything is very logical. Yeah? So basically, let's do one more activity before we finish and open up for Q&A and try to develop this sense of compassion. This actually comes from the Avamtasaka Sutra, and this is something which we can constantly remind ourselves of. Okay? Okay, so I guess, needless to say, I hope that tonight's class has solved the Bodhisattva Precepts for those who have not taken it. Yeah? No, just joking. We're just being serious with the class, okay? So basically we can see that through the development of the precepts, through 5 precepts until Bodhisattva Precepts, it's just working from the outset, okay, working on the behaviors and slowly turning the attention to our internal state of mind, okay, and training it to be able to get rid of the sense of I, which is none other than the cause of all sufferings. Yeah, so we can see that slowly the precepts become the mind precepts and slowly become the ultimate way towards joy. So the precepts equals joy when practiced properly and wholesomely. So with this, I'd like to thank everyone for coming. So before we do so, let me recap what we covered yesterday night. Okay, so during yesterday evening, we covered the formulation of the precepts according to the traditional formulation. Yeah, so this includes the 5 precepts, the Bodhisattva Precepts, and of course, taking refuge. Okay, so let me ask you guys a question. Okay, is it sufficient? Just to have the traditional, you could say, formulations of the precepts in today's day and age? Okay, if I say that we just need to withhold or uphold the 5 precepts, do you think this is enough? Do you think this is enough? Okay, especially for us who maybe do not understand the spirit behind the precepts. Maybe if we take the precepts too literally, then unfortunately there are many things that we can accidentally, you could say, transgress in terms of the precepts. Okay, take Facebook for example. What's been happening lately with the security of Facebook? Cambridge Analytica, right? So a lot of our personal data has been taken away for their own use. Okay, so things like this, I'm sure the Buddha didn't foresee this because technology was not an issue. But even things like money laundering and different types of corruption and fraud, back in the days, these things were not happening. Yeah, so these formulations were not in the question. So today it's all about talking about the modern interpretations of the precepts. Okay, so to put things into perspective, yesterday evening we talked about the relationship between the fulfillment of Shila, which is precepts, and our path towards peace and joy. Okay, we mentioned that Shila, or the practice and realization of Shila, is fundamental and paramount, okay, to leading us to the eradication of attachment to I. And apart from that, more importantly, as we engage in Shila, we're no longer harming people. We're no longer violating people's, you could say, even privacy or freedom. And as a result, it's something which happens in the here and now. We take the precepts, we realize the precepts, and we bring about joy to others. And then, of course, in terms of our mental state, we have a clear conscience. So we see that these two things happen internally and externally. Okay? And more importantly, the different levels of Shila or practice lead to different degrees of freedom. Okay, yesterday we mentioned that the 5 precepts can from the outset control inappropriate behavior which lead to suffering for both self and others. Okay? But we take it one notch higher. We take it to the precepts of the Bodhisattva. And yesterday we covered and affirmed that the Bodhisattva Precepts is about the mind. It's all about mind training. Okay? So it's insufficient just to control the body and mind. Body and speech. Okay, the mind is more important. So when we are able to control the mind, then of course we can truly be able to find ourselves one step closer to true joy. Okay, so the Bodhisattva precepts in this sense is, you could say, the highest realization of Shila. Okay, we spoke of the analogy of a person who has vowed for oneself and someone who has vowed for all sentient beings. Okay, the person who vows for himself, anything that happens to him or her becomes, I'm hurt, I'm discouraged, I'm frustrated, and so forth. Whereas someone who vows for the greater good, no matter what type of circumstances this person finds himself in, it doesn't matter, because it's all for all sentient beings. So we can see the difference between having the small I and the big I. So this was mentioned in terms of the Bodhisattva precepts. Okay. In light of the 3 trainings, we have first of all morality in terms of external training of body and speech. Okay. And this progresses onto active mental afflictions, okay, which we deal with the Bodhisattva precepts. And we follow on with wisdom to unravel the subconscious tendencies which are dormant in our minds, but sometimes are triggered by the outside world. Okay, so we have 3 different ways of seeing how Shila works. And yesterday we mentioned that Shila is both the means to the end as well as the means itself. So what it means is, through our practice of Buddhism, returning to the inner Shila we have is the ultimate goal. It's something we already had, but unfortunately we cannot find it, okay, because of our mental afflictions which happen here and now. So we can see that as long as we can return to this inner Shila, it means returning to the same Buddha nature that we all have had, all along. Okay. There's an analogy which illustrates this quite well and is quite moving. One day, our elder, so basically one day a young person, okay, was disheartened because he knew that he was a beggar. He was someone with low station, okay, wanting to find a happy life. So all along he didn't realize that he was someone with capability. Okay, so he went along with life being the servant of a rich family. Okay, but only after a while, just as he was about to give up seeking happiness in life, the Buddha told him that he had a gem in his pocket, front pocket. Okay, and this gem was the key for his happiness. It was worth $1 million. It was very expensive. But he didn't realize that he had this gem within himself all the time. And not only that, he didn't realize that he was the son of the family he was serving. Okay, so people are just like this. We don't realize how much we have until we introspect and look within for it. Yeah, so we all have this gem which none of us, some of us don't see all of a sudden. Okay, so the Buddha nature is likened to the Shila. We have this already. Okay, so let's read this line together. This verse is by Venerable Master. So from here we know that Venerable Master has made it very clear that the precepts are no longer enough just to be as they are. They need to be humanistic. So what does this mean? It means that the precepts need to be able to be accepted and utilized by people of today's society. Secondly, it needs to be life-affirming. It needs to be positive. It needs to be life-oriented and not submissive, or you could say reclusive. Yeah, and most importantly, it needs to be modern. It needs to be able to account for all the different, you could say, intricacies of modern life and be able to address them with full adroitness. Okay? So we know that the precepts need to be flexible. And with this said, it's important that the spirit of the precepts are preserved. Okay? So let's continue with the next line. So here, you see that Venerable Master has defined Shila or precepts from a broader perspective. As before, we may have thought that, hey, precepts are just about prohibitions, what we cannot do in life. Okay, but Venerable Master has stressed, especially in his new publication, Humanistic Buddhism, The Return to the Original Intents of the Buddha, he's stressed heavily that practicing the precepts include the prescriptive side of things, what we should do, what we need to do, not only to benefit ourselves and be happy and joyful, but to bring joyfulness to others as well. Okay, so from here we know that the ultimate practice of the precepts is to be a Bodhisattva. So let me have a show of hands. Who has taken the Bodhisattva Precepts? Don't be shy. Once you've done it, you've done it. There's no denial. Yeah? Okay. Yesterday we talked a lot on the Bodhisattva Precept. Okay? Imagine this. If the 5 precepts can bring happiness to yourself, whereas the Bodhisattva Precepts can bring happiness not only to yourself, but also to others, then it's like killing two birds with one stone. But of course, as Buddhists, we don't kill. Yeah. So basically, what it means is we're making a vow not only to help ourselves but help others, and in the same time, you're achieving 2 goals. Okay. And in Buddhist terms, to be able to turn that small I into the big I is all about being a Buddhist. Okay. So many a times we don't need to be afraid that once we've taken the vow, that we will regress and break the precepts. It's better to break the precepts while you have taken them than be non-Buddhist and break them. Because with that, there's an element of hiri, which is shame. Okay, once we know that we've made a vow to better ourselves, once we probably have a momentary lapse in our behavior, we will feel very deeply that, hey, I cannot do this again, and I'll move forward and make sure this doesn't happen again. Okay, so it gives us a power and empowerment to better ourselves. Okay, so let's talk about the modern, you could say, formulations of the precepts. Yeah, Venerable Master has stressed that they need to be altruistic, all-encompassing, and life-affirming. Okay, what this means is that the precepts need to address life in its fullest. It means that as modern people, we live in a day and age where we have a lot of materialistic gains in life. Okay. So Buddhism does not say, okay, you can no longer drive your BMW, you can no longer use SK2, because as we all know, this is something that has become a need of life, okay, for us to be able to maintain that level of living. But it means that we need to see past it, we need to see further, so that in the event that we don't have these things, we can still maintain our joy of mind. Okay, so this is the most important thing. And Venerable Master is stressing this very much in today's society. Okay, we know that Chan Master Baizhang, he had bypassed the original monastic precepts and formulated his own version to be able to suit the modern needs of a monastery. And this happened many hundred years ago. Whereas in Foguan-san, we know that Venerable Master has developed his own set of rules for us to practice humanistic Buddhism. Okay? Elsewise, if we did not do this, you would not have the Foguan-san you see here today. Okay? What types of charity works do we engage in as Buddha's Light members? let's have a bit of a discussion here. What type of things do we do? Okay, we have many chapters. How many chapters do we have here? Quite a few chapters, right? Yeah, so we know that we have many different BLA chapters, and all the chapters engage in very much, you could say, social welfare, and to some extent social education, community education. Okay, these things were not in the rules set by the Buddha. These things were things that Venerable Master had made, you could say, life-affirming. Even things like Jixiang, okay, auspiciousness to you, and things like the 3 acts of goodness, these things were not mentioned by the Buddha. The 4 givings, these things were not mentioned by the Buddha. But why did Venerable Master advocate these things? Okay, in hindsight, let us try to recall the very day we first walked into the monastery, into the temple. Okay, would you have joined Buddhism if all day long we talked about suffering? If all day long we talked about, you could say, negative sanctions, you do that, and then you have such a negative result. Yeah, I'm sure none of us will have stepped into the monastery. If we said that you need to give all your belongings away, and then you cannot see your husband as a lover, more so as your enemy, or your wife as your karmic indebtor, I'm sure none of you will be inspired. Yeah? But what are the 3 acts of goodness? Do good things, say good words, have good thoughts. Yeah? So what is this? Karma of body, speech, and mind. So if we can achieve this, if we can fulfill the purification of body, speech, and mind, it is none other than completing our practice of the precepts. So you can see that Venerable Master has brought about a very much positive orientation to the practice of Buddhism, which otherwise would be seemed as quite negative for most people who are non-Buddhist. So of course, Venerable Master has very much been in tune with the times, and he's been able to accommodate for many different types of people. Okay, there was a story once, we have a little fishing town just off the shore of Taiwan, Xiaoliuqiu, right? And this whole township consists of fishermen and nothing else. So the entire economy is run by fishermen. Okay? So at this particular point in time, like 20, 30 years ago, one of the devotees from this particular fishing town invited Venerable Master to go and preside over a taking refuge ceremony and 5 precepts conferring ceremony. But another devotee was like, hey, Venerable Master, there's no need for you to make the effort, because this town is a fishing town. Everyone kills every day to make a livelihood. Yeah? But the master thought to himself, although what you say is true, but these people need Buddhism more. At least they know that when they have a higher purpose in life, they will feel that they have a chance to change. So Venerable Master did go and give refuge to these people, right? At this particular moment, these fishermen asked the Venerable Master, what can I do? What can I do? My living is all about killing, right? The Venerable Master replied very skillfully. He said that although you are killing now, okay, although you are killing now, don't kill with your mind. Don't intend to kill. And make sure that whenever you have the very first instance of changing, or you could say choosing another type of livelihood, then do so. Okay? So you can see that if today we were too dogmatic about the practice of the 5 precepts, these people will never be able to become Buddhist, and they will never see a better way of life. So many a times it's about giving the convenience for people to first of all find interest in the Dharma and then slowly work away towards it. Okay? If today we said that taking the 5 precepts is not about lying, then many businessmen will never find their way into the doors of Buddhism. Okay, I'm sure there's no salesman anywhere in the world that goes, hey, my product is lousy, don't buy it. Okay, although we may know so ourselves, right? Okay, so every field has their way of operating the business, but of course it's all about the intention. Okay, it's all about the intention. Okay, so secondly, we say that the precepts need to be humanized. Okay, it needs to be accessible. It needs to be something which people and the masses are readily accepting. Okay, things like the 3 acts of goodness and so forth as mentioned. Okay, so these things we've mentioned before, it needs to be relevant to today's society. Okay, so apart from what we've mentioned, the formulations of the precepts not only needs to be humanistic, life-affirming and modern, it also needs to encompass and manifest the spirit of the Bodhisattva. Okay, so what it means is we need to put others before ourselves. Okay, so this is one thing which, have you guys ever tried just for one day, okay, placing all your intentions, all your concern on other people apart from ourselves? Have you ever tried that just for one day? The feeling is totally different. Okay, you give rise to a type of joy which cannot be bought with materialistic entities. It is something which comes from within. Okay, and there has been a lot of research done recently about generosity. Yeah, the more you're generous, the less likely you'll have depression or anxiety. Okay, because slowly we tend to lessen our self-centered views and habitual tendencies and extend our love to all people. And in doing so, we let go of our pains which are related to I. Things we like, we lose, we get anxious, we get angry. Okay, things we cannot achieve, we give rise to a frustration. Okay, things that we don't like and they come into our lives, it gives rise to a sense of resentment. Okay, so there are many different emotions that come about because of the attachment to this I. Okay, so this is, no matter what we do, no matter how we practice the precepts, it only serves two things. One is to benefit others, and one is to purify our minds. Okay, so the Lotus Sutra sums up the very first precept the Buddha had mentioned during his time on earth. Okay, so this is as simple as the very first set of precepts that Shakyamuni Buddha had discoursed even before he had mentioned the 5 precepts or Bodhisattva precepts. Yeah, so to protect sentient beings, we can look at it from 2 angles. Right? First of all, we don't harm them. This is a given. Right? But apart from not just harming them, it's all about producing the conditions which allow someone to have a good life. So this may be bringing them to the Dharma, providing them with the causes and conditions which allow them to have a better life. And in doing so, our attention is no longer I. Okay? So we see that, what do you guys see here in front of you? Okay, what is the very first reaction? Most of you said, a little man. Okay? A little man. This is the very standard answer for most people. Okay? From a psychological point of view, it's the way we see everything in life. Okay? We always focus on the small things, the intricacies which are related to I. It's all about I. It's all about I lose, I gain, I love, I hate, and so forth. Yeah? But many times we don't realize that there is so much white around it, so many different causes and conditions which support our existence. In fact, many sutras say that anything that does not hinder our good existence is a supporting condition. Okay, so this brings about a sense of gratitude towards everything in life. Whoever does not come in my way is my great friend. Whoever does come in my friend is my good teacher. Because this person is trying to make me better. This person is giving me the causes and conditions to grow against all odds. Yeah, so we can see that no matter positive or negative, they are all good conditions for us to grow. Yeah, so many times as we step into this world, of course, it's important to see the bigger picture, to see things in context of the larger sense of I. So we can see that as Buddhists, it's all about having a very broad worldview. Okay, first of all, Venerable Master, during his verse we've recited before, the precepts need to be in line with the Bodhisattva way. So first of all, the first section we'd like to discuss are the traditional ways of the Bodhisattva, and later on we'll be talking about the modern interpretations as formulated by our Venerable Master. Okay, so first of all, we'll be looking at the 6 parameters. okay, and the 4 means of embracing. Okay, does everyone still remember the parameters? What are they? Which parameters are they? 忍辱精进, 布施. Okay. 般若, 禅定. Okay, so what is the order in English? From generosity? What's next? Shila. Okay, what's next? Shanti. Okay, what's next? Diligence. Right? What's the 5th one? Meditation, and then prajna, wisdom. So why does generosity come first before anything? Yeah, Venerable Master lately, I'm not sure whether you have had the opportunity to have an audience with the Venerable Master in recent years, but Venerable Master has recently stressed the importance of generosity, has stressed the importance of giving people joy, making people feel joyous. Okay, there is a lot of deep, profound Dharma in this. Yeah, why do we need to allow people to be joyful? How many of you, when you step into Fogansan, Singapore, Pango Place, that you feel joyful? Yeah, how many people? Let me see a show of hands. Why is this so? How can you describe it? Let us have 3 people share with us their thoughts on this, okay? Why, when you first walk into the temple, you feel a sense of joy? It may be the architecture, it may be the reception you receive, okay? So let us have 3 people, okay? 3 volunteers. Who'd like to be the first one? Okay, it's good to see that there are many young people here studying Buddhism, especially in Singapore, because this is something which is quite not so prevalent in other countries. Yeah, to be able to see that kind of like, you could say, heritage passed down. Yeah, this is something which Singaporeans should be proud of. Yeah, we have all done a good job passing down the faith. Yeah. Okay, so we can see that the 6 parameters and the 4 means of embracing are 2 sides of the same coin. Okay, the 6 parameters focus more on the perfection of the mind as we engage in the 4 means of embracing. Okay, Venerable Master has also recently talked about frequently how to be accepted by others. So think about it. Maybe we think, hey, how to be accepted by others? It's social pressure. Some people think, okay, I need to conform. Okay, but there's a very fine line between conforming socially and being accepted virtuously. Okay? To conform with a group of friends who like to drink, you need to drink. Okay? But to conform with a group or be accepted by a group virtuously means to be able to shine all your true colors in terms of all your good Buddhist practice and influence them. So there's a big difference between just going with the flow, causing trouble, and really just fitting in and trying to make that difference from yourself, okay, to be the inspiration for others. Okay, so there are many things in life that we can do which can really, you could say, inspire others. From the very small action, for example, of us as young people, okay, visiting a friend's house, and what do? We actively help them do the chores. Or we act in a way which people see, hey, this person is different from other people. This person is compassionate. This people speaks nice words. My son should be like that as well. Okay? So there are many ways of not only fitting in, but being the inspiration for others. Yeah? So we now see the connection between the 6 parameters and the 4 means of embracing. Okay? So first of all, let us define what is paramita. Okay, what is paramita? So para in Sanskrit means beyond. It just simply means beyond. Ita is different. It means that which has gone. So if you put these words together, it means that which has gone. Okay? Beyond. That which has gone beyond. But in simple terms, it's gone to the beyond. Okay? What it means is, don't think that gone to the beyond means something which is very far-fetched. If in your very everyday life you are able to transcend your afflictions of greed, anger, doubt, suspicion, jealousy, and so forth, then you have already transcended this particular affliction. So it's something which is very real and very close to home. It's not something which is far-fetched, okay? And of course, there are 2 types of attachments which we try to cut off or try to release ourselves from. Okay, so this is, the first one is to do with the self. Okay, to kind of like let go of the idea that everything evolves around myself and see that the whole world is an interconnected web of different causes and conditions. Okay, an analogy I used yesterday, I'd like to share again because I think some of our Dharma brothers and sisters here have only just come today. Okay, imagine our bodies. What happens when you do not drink for 3 days? We die. Would this body be considered a human body? No, it will be considered a human corpse. Okay? So you can see that the body is very transient. We just don't need to do something for 3 days and it's gone. Okay? Our minds, okay, when your boyfriend, girlfriend, husband or wife tells you, I love you, don't take it too seriously. Okay? Why? The type of love this person has for you at that particular time will change. The next time this person says, I love you, it will be a different type of love. Because there's no one thought which is exactly the same as another previous thought. Because the differences of conditions change, and of course the thoughts come about as well. Okay, so there's nothing that stays the same forever. So Venerable Master always encourages us. We can enjoy things in their impermanent state, but do not try to possess them. Okay, in Chinese it's 享有总比这个拥有好. Okay, but some people take it wrongly. People may think, okay, I just need to enjoy and not take responsibility for what I enjoy. Okay, it does not mean that. Okay, otherwise people will start having, the misses on the side, thinking that I just need to enjoy and not be responsible. Okay, what it means is we can enjoy things as they are, but not become too attached to them. Okay, so Venerable Master has been very clear with how we can live life in this present moment in time. Okay, and so let us go through each paramita one by one, so that we can have a better, clearer picture of this. Okay, so let's read the first one together. Dana paramita, generosity, giving of oneself. So tell me, what would be more beneficial if someone gave everything they had, be it $1, or someone who has $1 million and only gives $1? Who has given himself or herself? It would be the first person, because that person has given everything that he has. Okay, so it's the same with giving in terms of the, you could say, the consciousness level side of things. When we give everything that we have, it shows that we are able to let go of our attachment to self. Whereas those who only give $1 when they have 1 million, it's a menial type of giving, which does not result in renunciation of greed and anger. Okay, so we can see that even through the Buddhist practice, we are able to train the mind for the better. That's what the paramitas are trying to teach us. Yeah. Second one is Shila. Let's read this together. Okay, we need to be careful here. Morality in today's terms means anything that are a set of rules where we need to confirm. Okay, or conform. So what it means, it's external. But in terms of Shila, it's not just external. Most importantly, we're giving rise to our inner Shila, something which comes from within. Okay, what happens when you see a baby fall from the 10th story floor of a high-rise apartment? What is your first reaction? Will you try and catch this baby? Yeah? Who will not try and catch this baby and just curse the baby? No one. Okay, this means that you're all normal, okay, because we're in line with our inner sila. This comes from within. You don't need to think about it. You don't need to intellectualize. It happens because you have compassion within, okay? So this is inner virtue. We also have virtues to do with our actions. Because we are now Buddhist, we know that there are certain things that we need to do to perfect our path towards perfecting the human condition. Okay, so this is through learning. And of course there are external rules which we have vowed to follow. So it's not just morality, it's Shila. Okay, so what is the underlying characteristic of Shila? What is Shila? The 5 precepts are the manifestation or the practice of the Shila, leading to Shila. Okay, but what is Shila in its essence, its ultimate form? It has the attributes of cooling. It has the attributes of calm. Okay, so this counteracts the effects of affliction, which is like fire. It burns. Yeah? So we can see with anger, right? How many people, after giving rise to anger, feel that it's very difficult to function properly? Yeah? Many people? Yeah, there's been recent research that has proven that anger has become out of hand for modern people. Yeah? Whereas in the past, what has been needed to trigger our fight or flight, you could say response to a situation, would be life-threatening situations. Okay? And this type of flight or fight gives rise to extreme anger, which comes in a manifestation of either I fight or I run away. Okay? But nowadays, it does not require a life-threatening situation. All you need is someone giving you the wrong look, or someone cutting you in as you drive. Little things like this. And what happens when this anger arises? It causes so many different physical ailments, okay, like stroke, heart disease, and mental illnesses like, you could say, depression and anxiety. So many things stem from anger. Okay, so many people think that mental illness has nothing to do with Buddhism. Okay, but in all fact, all types of mental illness come from only one thing: wrong views. Okay, and wrong views cause greed and anger to arise because we are too attached to the notion of self. Okay, so by reducing the attachment to I, we also reduce our feelings of anger, because there is no I which can be made angry. There is no I which should be greedy. Yeah, so we can see that the precepts work in this particular way. Okay, so what's the next one? Santi Paramita. Let's read it together. Okay, the patience we're talking about now is not just ordinary patience. Yeah, because ordinary patience means that you have to painfully accept something, painfully try to come to terms with something. So although you are not 100% willing to accept it, you do so. Otherwise, you will not make progress in life. And what would be good examples of accepting something out of your will? Okay, students, for example. How many students love taking exams? Yes, exactly. Yeah. So not many. Sorry. Not even adults, yeah? So even in the workplace, in the corporate field, there are many times when you have to take professional training courses, and I'm sure none of us enjoy them because it challenges what we feel comfortable with. And what we feel comfortable with is our formation of the ideal sense of I. Anything that goes against this ideal sense of I is like a threat to me, a perceived threat. And because of this, afflictions arise. Okay, so we know that patience is not just at this level. Soon we'll be going into detail, okay? What's the next one? Okay, in Buddhism, we say that greed, there are two types of greed: beneficial greed and unwholesome greed, okay? So whereas anger is completely evil, greed, there are two types. You need to have a type of greed to learn the Dharma. Because if you did not have this greed, it's easy for you to let go. So as Buddhists, we are full of sentiment. Okay, in Chinese, 人情味. We need to have a very strong feeling towards us as Buddhists, our life as Buddhists. Yeah. Okay. And what's the next one? Dhyana paramita. Okay. What is it? How many times when you have been working steadily with whatever you're doing to the point where you don't think of anything else? Yeah. How many of you have played computer games until you don't hear your mom saying, "Honey, dinner time"? Yeah? And has anyone found themselves in such a situation? Yeah? This is slightly different than one-pointed concentration. Okay? This type of one-pointed concentration is achieved through engaging with the outside world and focusing on one point but still working. Okay? The true meaning behind dhyana paramita is when you are completely free of all mental, you could say, activities and be very clear of every single moment. Okay, so this is a very difficult topic to understand. Okay, and today we may not have time to go in detail, but what it means in its general spirit is to be mindful at all times, mindful to the point where you're aware of everything that happens around you. Okay, what's the next one? Prajna paramita. Okay, so what is it? Okay, what type of insight is prajna paramita? What type of wisdom is it? Is it normal wisdom? Yeah? It's actually wisdom through your experiences. So as you come into contact with the world around you, you see the impermanence of everything. You see that everything does not have an independently existing self-nature. Okay? Let me ask you guys a question. What is the greatest hope of humanity? What is the greatest hope of humanity? So we have world peace, we have compassion. What else do we have? Loving kindness. Okay? But what gives rise to this? What allows these things to happen in the first place? Impermanence. Yeah, so if today I found myself in a very difficult situation, the only reason why I have hope to change is because things are transient, things are not fixed as they are. And because of this, when we understand this, we are empowered. Okay, so no matter what situation we find ourselves in, life has a lot of hope. Yeah? So no matter which way it goes, good or bad, impermanence brings new future, new hope to us, revived hope. Okay, so we can see that through this type of understanding of life, we know that we can take our life in our own hands. Okay, so let's break up our study of each paramita and try to understand it more clearly. Okay, so what's the first one? Okay, how many of us have one time or another contributed to a trust, like a trust fund, or a charity? How many of us have done so? Yeah? I'm sure quite a few of us, right? Singaporeans are very altruistic, yeah? But when you give that dollar, when you contribute to that particular fund, what types of thoughts are running through my head? Yeah, what types of thoughts are running through our minds? Are we giving? Yeah, we're giving, right? We have the idea that we are giving. Do we have intentions behind the giving? Yeah, what's the intention behind giving? Doing a good cause. Yeah, do we expect some type of reimbursement? No? You sure? Sometimes, right? Because we like to seek, you could say, recognition. Yeah? Yeah, tax deductions, right? This is very, yeah. I think all of us do it. My mother does it all the time. Yeah, because it helps to reduce the threshold, right? Okay, so these are many different ways of giving. Okay, but very soon we realize that the more we are attached to the idea of giving, gift or giver, this type of giving is no longer pure. Because when we give, we already have the concept that I have given. Okay, so it becomes me again. It becomes the evil I. Okay, it comes into place. Since that I have given, I have lost something. I have renounced something and it hurts sometimes, especially when the amount is big. Yeah? But a true Bodhisattva is not like that. He does not engage in the notion that, hey, there's someone who is giving, I'm giving. And he does not think about the gift or the value of the gift. Or nor does he think about that, okay, that person is the recipient. Okay? So, are there any people like this who give without any attachment? Yes. Our Venerable Master. Okay? Imagine giving away an entire primary school to someone else who has nothing to do with Foguan-san. Would you be able to give a multi-million-dollar complex away just like that? Would you be able to do so? No. Okay, so many years ago, we actually have 2 primary schools in Taiwan. Okay, not to mention the other primary schools elsewhere. Okay, and one of them was given away to a philanthropist by the name of, I can't remember his name all of a sudden, but he's quite famous. Yeah. But this person, Venerable Master knew that us as Foguan-san, we are Buddhist. Okay, so we are not very well versed with how education should be run in Taiwan. And because this particular person engages in educational endeavors and is very clear with the educational climates of Taiwan, Venerable Master knew that by giving this person this school, he'd be able to bring it to greater heights. So there he goes without any strings attached, gives away this school. Okay, so at this point, devotees were a bit worried, thinking, Master, why are you giving such a school away? It's worth millions of dollars. It has come about because of the culmination of so many different benefactors. And in doing so, will they not feel that they have given something away out of their, not because of out of their willingness to do so? Okay, so Venerable Master said to himself and said to the devotees, there's no need to worry. Once we have given something, then we have given something. We should not worry about how we give or the results of giving. Yeah? So just like this person now has brought this school to great heights. Okay, and Venerable Master now has seen the fruition of his actions. Yeah, so many times when we give, it's important that we do so without attachment. Otherwise, things will go wrong. Soon you'll feel regret. Okay. So there are many ways of giving, but in terms of Buddhism, the general rule is not to be attached to the gift, the giver, and the receiver. Yeah. Let me ask you guys a question. Who has given to charity before? Who has given to charity before? Yeah? I've given to charity before a long time ago. What type of mindset do we adopt as we give to this charity? What type of mindset do we have as we give to this charity? Sometimes we give with a mind of, you could say, pity for the person receiving or for the group who are receiving this donation. Okay? It's true. There's nothing wrong with this because we're developing our compassionate mind. Okay? But then again, it causes the sense that we are a little bit superior to the person we are giving. Okay? So in essence, this is also something as a Bodhisattva, knowing that all of us here are devotees of many years, is something that we can work on, to give without attachment to form. Okay? According to the sutras, Prajna Paramita Sutras, okay, the great perfection of Paramita treatise, it says that there are 3 different types of people who give. First of all, the very first person gives because of his own sake. He thinks that because I can give, I will reap good retribution. I will accumulate a lot of merits. Yeah, so this is the first type of person. The second type of person thinks that because I have given, I'm able to renounce worldly desires. Okay, so this is not the wholesome way of giving. But the third type of person gives because he wants to benefit all sentient beings. So his intention is placed on all sentient beings, not just himself, not for personal gain. Okay, so there are 3 types of giving. Okay. So of course, the function of giving is none other than trying to deal with our attachment to I. Yeah? Okay. And onto the types of giving. Okay, in Buddhism, the general understanding is that the giving of wealth, the Dharma, and freedom from fear are the 3 upmost types of giving. Okay, so wealth is a given. We give away the possessions we have. But what is giving of the Dharma? What are examples of giving of the Dharma? Giving of the Dharma is nothing more than raising your hand and sharing what you know about the Dharma, right? Yeah? So it doesn't matter whether it's wrong or right. You have tried to give some positive input, yeah? Thank you. So it's all about sharing your practice and your realizations of the Dharma with people, right? Yeah, so don't be afraid that you may be wrong as you explain the Dharma, but think of it as sharing or trying to inspire others by your experiences and inspirations of the Dharma. Yeah, so Dharma, the gift of the Dharma is very important. How about the gift of freedom from fear? This is a very interesting topic. Okay, what are types of fear? Let us brainstorm. What are types of fear? Having fear of grave sickness because there's not much medical insurance, right? Or it's expensive. Expensive, yeah? Okay. Are there any examples of fear? Or fear-inducing situations? There are many, right? Anything you do which can take away this fear is the gift of fearlessness. This may be encouragement, something as simple as giving a smile, encouraging people, giving them hope with kind words, and sometimes even helping them deal with the issues, sometimes with money, sometimes with other types of materialistic offerings and so forth. Yeah? So at the time of need, right, when someone is in a time of need, if we are able to give them that one condition, which allows them to overcome their fear, then this is a very important type of giving. So I recall the days when Venerable Master shares his stories about the reason why he had set up so many different tea houses around the world. Do you guys like the tea house in Bangkok Place here? Yeah? The food is amazing, right? And the price is very affordable. Okay? So why did Venerable Master make a vow to establish so many different tea houses around the world? Okay? The idea is simple, very simple. Okay? First of all, when the Venerable Master was about 17, okay, he contracted malaria and he was very close to death. In fact, he was just on the verge. But upon knowing this, our great master, our grand master, Zikai, our ancestral master, he offered Venerable Master half a bowl of pickled vegetables. And this was enough to instill courage in the Venerable Master to continue forward. Okay, this is the first instance where the Venerable Master had made the vow to reciprocate his master's kindness by establishing many different temples around the world. And the second time he vowed to do something in terms of create tea houses, establish tea houses, is one day he was actually at a monastery called Sandao Si. Okay, he was there working on his publication called Jie Shi. So in the old days, Venerable Master was an avid writer. He was actually well known for all the different types of publications he was in charge of, and he was editor-in-chief. So he was very important back in Taiwan. Yeah. So every single week he had to go up to the temple up north to submit his papers for the papers to be published and so forth. And every time he went there, he was met with coldness and bitterness because the place where he stayed did not offer the type of hospitality that we know of provided by Fogwan-san. Okay? So at that particular moment in time, he made a vow saying that in the future, whoever comes through the doors of my branch temples, of my temples, will definitely, first of all, will be able to fill their tummies, regardless whether they have money or not. Okay? So now in Taipei Vihara, in northern Taiwan, we have a branch temple called Taipei Vihara, where they serve free congee to those who need it. Okay? We also have in Fogwan-san the Pilgrim's Lodge, where people can eat and not even give $1. Okay, so this is by donation. So there are many temples around the world which operate by donation. Okay, so this is in the spirit of providing people convenience. But if you look at it deeply, for those who really need it, it also provides them relief from the fear of being hungry. Okay, so like this, we know that giving people freedom from fear is also important. We need to first deal with their fears, inspire them, and then we can do some more to them with the Dharma. Okay? So giving what is hard, what is difficult to give. Okay? This is the ultimate meaning of giving. Okay? It means that we give sincerely and from the bottom of our minds and hearts. Okay? And I'm sure most of us here, as Fogwanians, we try to aspire to do so. Okay, so there are also different types of giving. Okay, there is the giving where we relinquish our greed, relinquish our type of attachment. Okay, so this is achieved through what we have mentioned before. And also, if we do not have the capability to give, the other thing we can do, which you could say accumulates the same type of merits according to the sutras, is to rejoice in other people's beneficial deeds or beneficence, right? So one day when we see our different brothers and sisters do something good, well, we should give rise to joy about it, right? Because it's like, okay, he has the capability of doing something good. Okay, we should be happy. We should, at that particular moment, give rise to utmost respect for this person. Okay, in doing so, we give rise to a mind which overcomes pettiness and jealousy. Okay, this is also the relinquishment of jealousy. Okay, so we can see that the whole of the Dharma is all about training the mind and doing good things to others as well. Okay, So the perfection of morality, as we've mentioned before, we've gone through this quite a bit yesterday because the whole focus was on this yesterday. Okay, but let's read this together. Okay, why can we not look at the faults of others as we practice Buddhism? Why? Why not? Think about it. Okay. We all come to planet Earth. We all come to Singapore with different causes and conditions. Some people are born into loving families, but some people are not that fortunate. Yeah? Why is this so? Yeah, it's because of our previous causes and conditions. Things that have come about because of our past life. Okay? But knowing this, we know that everyone comes with different habitual tendencies as well. Some people have, you could say, shortcomings in certain areas, whereas other people have, their strengths in other places. But because of this, we know that there are differences. So why should we be bothered at all? Everyone comes here differently. We should see the goodness in others and try to encourage others for the better instead of looking at their faults. Because no matter what you try or how you try to discern the faults of others, it will never end. Because everyone is different from everyone in terms of the karma. But in fact, everyone is the same. Everyone has the same Buddha nature that we share equally. So there's a saying, okay, equality can be found in non-equality, and non-equality can be found in equality. Okay, although we have the same base, the same type of, you could say, potential for goodness, we come with different levels of understanding of this goodness. So definitely there will be different understandings and manifestations of such behavior because of the different understandings. So this should actually give rise to what? Sheer compassion. Compassion, knowing that everyone is different. Okay, some people may not be as well off as us. Okay, so as such, we need to give rise to compassion instead of a mind of pettiness. So this is why Shila comes into place here. Okay, so precepts are like training wheels. They're just like the tricycle where you have the two wheels behind. It helps us to balance. It helps us to train ourselves to find equal points, equilibrium, when we try to find inner Shila or discover our inner Shila. It's just a return to what was already good. Okay? And in the process, we did develop three things. Okay? Selfless compassion and renunciation, and also this understanding and appreciation for karma. Okay? So these things are what happens when we train in morality. The next one is something which is very difficult to understand, okay? Simply because it requires a lot of wisdom to do so. Okay, so we know that Santi is pacified patience. Pacified. In Chinese, it's called anren. Okay? You can have patience, but it may not be pacified, right? Many of us have to practice patience, right? For example, we're in the workplace, we have a superior. If we do not like this superior, we cannot act against it. Otherwise, we will lose the job. So we can see patience is something we must practice in life. But those with wisdom, they are able to pacify the type of patience. And this is done so by seeing the emptiness of everything. Okay? Who is stronger? Who is stronger? Someone who throws a heavy punch and is able to knock someone out, or someone who is holding the punch back and not blow that punch? Who is stronger? Sorry? Holding back the punch. Why? It takes courage. It takes going against our anger, going against our afflictions. Yeah? So that's why we say that whoever does not punch has greater strength. Whoever does not rebuke or refute someone's reprimand is strong, because from that moment, he increases his ability to withhold his emotions. Whoever is able to remain calm under insult is someone who is strong, because he or she has developed the resilience towards insult. And believe you or me, insult is the hardest to forbear because it deals directly with our ego. It is dealing with the ego that we have created, the perfect image of us as, for example, corporate managers, the perfect father, the perfect mother, okay, the perfect student. It has gone against what we hold true to ourselves, but unfortunately is just a fabrication of what we are. Okay, so Santi has more to this than we can think of. Okay, there are actually 3 different types of patience. The patience that we know in our everyday lives is likened to ordinary patience. We try to forbear the things in life because we need to survive. We need to forbear the things that we do not like because we need to fit in. Yeah, but then there is the Dharma patience. It is the patience that comes about because we learn about transience, impermanence, because we learn about the non-attachment to sensations and so forth. We learn that everything only is temporary, so there's no need to hold on to it, right? So many times, Dharma patience can be one step higher than ordinary patience because we understand the mechanics behind it. Yeah? Tell me, how many people, before learning Buddhism, when reacting to the same situation, for example, if your subordinates did something wrong, before you were Buddhist, what would be your very first reaction? Are there any corporate managers here or those in the corporate field? Yeah? Anyone? Okay. What would you do before you were Buddhist if someone had gone against your wishes? Fire them or scold them. Okay? Scold them. What would you do now as a Buddhist? Okay, to kind of counsel them through the mistake and try to help them improve. Yeah? So the whole attitude is very different. Okay, I'm sure many of us here are managers, but very shy managers. Yeah? But I'm sure all of us are in some type of role. Okay? And it's very obvious. The time you become Buddhist is the time you realize that, hey, people make mistakes, not because they mean to, but because they have limited ability. But seeing this, seeing the causes and conditions of everything, we try to analyze life logically. And we see that things happen because of reasons, and we deal with the reasons instead of the effects. So the cause instead of the results. Okay, and in doing so, I'm sure many people have been able to serve the role better. Okay, the next one is patience of one who has fully comprehended the truth of emptiness. And this is the point in time where you become a true Bodhisattva. Okay, so rest assured, if you cannot do it yet, you're in the same boat. We're all the same. Okay, but this is what we aspire to become. Someone who can, under any circumstance at all, see the emptiness of everything. So he or she is no longer moved by external circumstances. But this is a point in time, like Venerable Master. I've never seen him react adversely to physical pain. Okay, there was once a very moving moment when we had the Vesak celebration in front of the president's palace in Taiwan. Okay, this was like 3 years ago. Okay, that particular year, it has surpassed precedent because in the past it never rained during Vesak Day. But that day it poured down, it was raining cats and dogs, and the whole place was wet. Okay? So very soon, everyone in the audience and all the VIPs on stage, they quickly put on their ponchos to protect them from the rain. But when the assistants of Venerable Master insisted that the Venerable Master use an umbrella, he refused. He thought that, how can I dare to put on a poncho and take an umbrella when all these other people who do not have a poncho will get wet? How can I be different from other people? Yeah? So wherever Venerable Master goes, he never is willing to be different from anyone else. Okay, so this is very moving, and to the point where he can sacrifice his health. Okay? When the Venerable Master was 27, at that particular point in time, he was traveling from south to north, north to south all the time to preach the Dharma. And back in the days, there was no such thing as the speaker, the PA system. Okay? So upon being able to acquire one, it was a very rare commodity. And as we know, the roads back in the days was not as well developed. Okay, so whenever he traveled north to preach the Dharma, he'd take along his PA system. Okay, about 40 years ago, 50 years ago, or even like 60 years ago. And this PA system, as we know, is very sensitive to the shakes as you receive along the road. So what did the Venerable Master do? He carried the 30-kilogram PA system on his lap on his travels. And sometimes these travels take several hours, even sometimes half a day or even the whole day. So imagine carrying 30 kilos on your lap for half a day. How many of us can do this? Not many people. Okay? But there did come a point in time when the Venerable Master had to face his physical consequences. There came a time where he had damaged all the nerves in his thighs because of this, that the doctors back in the days said that the only way to save himself was to amputate both legs. At the point, the Venerable Master thought to himself, hey, okay, great. If I was to amputate my legs, I can spend more time writing, and writing for the Dharma, writing for Buddhism. You could see that although he was about to sacrifice his legs, he did not see any fear. In fact, he was actually quite happy that he'd have the conditions to write more because that was what he was good at. Yeah, so we can see that the Venerable Master was fearless. But luckily enough, putting off his surgery, he realized that his legs were getting better. And after that, he realized that he did no longer need surgery. But because of this, now you see Venerable Master, before he was confined to the wheelchair, he was already using the cane from about the age of 50 onwards. Okay, so of course he had the physical, you could say, results of doing this. But all along, the Venerable Master never saw his body as painful. It was painful, but he was never bothered by it. Okay? There are many stories where, because the Venerable Master goes all the way around the world to preach the Dharma, going from country to country. And sometimes he'd be going from a place where it's minus 10 degrees Celsius in Europe and flying to Southeast Asia to preach the Dharma. And as you know, Venerable Master has quite a following and quite a fan base. So wherever he finds himself, the very first thing people do at the airport is greet him warmly and ask him many questions. So he rarely has the chance to use the bathroom or change his clothes. So imagine coming from a place minus 10 degrees, finding yourself in Southeast Asia, and not having the opportunity to change your clothes. So of course you can see that the Venerable Master has to put up with a lot of physical pain and not being able to use the bathroom. Okay? Sometimes he can go literally 24 hours, literally, without using the bathroom. And sometimes adjusting his attire to suit the type of climate. Yeah? So all this is all about being able to see through that pain for the sake of sentient beings. Okay? These are real life examples of patience in practice. Yeah? Okay, next we have the perfection of diligence. Let's read this together. Okay, this is a very standard formula, and it's something which I like to practice myself because it's very straightforward and it has no loopholes. Yeah, because as human beings, I'm sure we always try to find the easy way out. Okay, but in doing so, I'm sure like you try to start things which have not arisen, which are good. Okay, you try to reduce those things which are not so good. Okay, and likewise, things which have arisen which are bad, you try to reduce, and those evils which have not arisen, you try to prevent. Okay, this formulation is something that throughout the ages has been beneficial. So this particular formulation is used until today. Okay, and it's something which is easy to follow. Yeah, so this is very much, you could say, suggested for daily use in the modern world. Yeah? Okay. The perfection of meditative concentration, or dhyana, is something which is more difficult to understand. Okay? But imagine the point in time where your mind is so still, so peaceful, and concentrated on just your task at hand without any distraction. Okay? You're working towards this particular state. So, But the thing behind this, the way we can achieve this state of mind is if we can purely and always uphold clear conscience. So the prerequisite of this is if we hold the precepts. Tell me, how many people can sleep at nighttime knowing that they have done something wrong in their workplace? Yeah? If we had done something that we knew would have consequences, how many people can sleep restfully? Not many people. How many times have we lied to a colleague for vested interest? Many times. How many times have we been untruthful to our clients for our own interest? Many a times. But in doing so, you realize that you mix up or you make your mind very complicated because of your complications in your motives, and you go against your clear conscience. And this is the ultimate, you could say, cause of the lack of concentration. So we can see the balance between concentration and keeping a clear conscience. Okay, so it's very important. Okay, according to Chan Master Huicheng, he says that if you can concentrate, there is no need for the precepts. And if you uphold the precepts well, naturally, you can concentrate the mind. Okay, so we know that concentration and precepts go hand in hand. Okay, so we said before that precepts equals dhyana, right? And dhyana is the manifestation of the precepts in full observance. But now we say that prajna and dhyana are the same, meaning that wisdom and the meditative state are the same. Why do we say so? Why do we say so? Think about it. If today our minds are completely still, without affliction, it means none other than returning to the internal purity of the Buddha nature. Okay. How many times has your mind been still so that you see the compassion within? When you see that life is totally fair. Has there ever been instances of this, yeah? Okay, we see that if we take prajna wisdom and dhyana at a more conventional level, as in something which relates to daily life, think about it. The moment when we're very clear with what's happening, we're very clear with the different causes and conditions, we're very clear with the situation, naturally our minds will be at ease. We no longer feel fear or anxiety because we know things has a beginning, things has a cause, and we naturally accept the way things happen and try to influence the way things turn out. Yeah? Likewise, if we fully understand dependent origination, our minds will not be moved at all. Okay? But when we are in a state of meditation, when our minds are clear, we also do not feel fear. Why? Because we see that everything happens as it is, as a matter of course. Yeah, so likewise, it's two sides of the same coin. To try to say that dhyana and prajna are different is trying to say that a human being is different from a Buddha. We know that the Buddha and the human being are the same, right? So it's trying to split something which cannot be split. Okay, so we know that prajna and dhyana are two sides of the same coin. Okay, but the Buddha uses an analogy which explains how the 6 parameters work together. Okay, let's read the next line. So from here we know that the 6 parameters are something which needs to be simultaneously practiced. Imagine giving without wisdom. Okay, one day when we see, hypothetically speaking, one day when we go to the subway and we see someone begging for money, okay, knowing that this person is trying to feed his addiction of heroin, do you think, as a Buddhist, we know that we need to be generous, but if today we did not exercise our wisdom, we're thinking, okay, I need to give my wealth away, I need to give everything that I own. Are you going to give this person $100 so that he can feed his heroin addiction? Of course not. But someone not using his wisdom may do so. Okay? So these are very real examples of giving. Will you give money to a friend knowing that he is feeding his gambling addiction? No. So there are certain instances that we cannot give. Okay, so this is because we have the prajna wisdom to see that, okay, there are times when giving will harm people. There are times when giving will not benefit this person at all. So we know that prajna wisdom and all the other types of parameters go hand in hand. It's impossible to practice santi properly, or what we say, patience under insult properly, if you do not have prajna wisdom, because we will not see through the transience of life. We will see that everything is as too real. Okay, so many times wisdom is the ultimate eye for the other five parameters in this sense. Yeah, so we can say it is like the guiding. You could say it is like the lighthouse for us. It shows us the way. Okay, now on to the more applied perspective of the Bodhisattva. We say that there is the four means of embracing. Okay, what do we mean by embracing? What do we need to do to be able to make people feel at ease? They need to feel accepted. They need to feel loved, and so forth. Okay, so with the first particular type of embracing, what is it? To be generous. Okay, what are the things which we can be generous with? Let us have 2 volunteers answer this question. Yeah, may we have 2 volunteers? What types of generosity can we engage in? Time, definitely. How many of us have been in a situation where we feel down and we needed a friend to listen to us? I'm sure that all of us have had this situation. Imagine if your friend said, come on, I don't have time. Go and do something to make yourself happy. Do you think that this will make yourself feel nice? Definitely not. So time is a very good offering. How about giving of our emotions, giving of our talents, yeah, giving of our knowledge? These are all different ways of giving. So don't think that giving is all about monetary giving, but it's giving of ourselves. Okay, and in doing so, the person will feel it. The person will feel it. Okay, and secondly, giving kind words. Okay, what type of kind words can we give to people in life? Words of encouragement, yeah, praise, and so forth. Okay, great. So anything which allows people to feel better than they are now are kind words. Yeah, it's very simple, and it's very doable, as we will soon see with Venerable Master's formulation of the 4 types of giving. Okay, the next one is altruism, and that is everything to do with giving others joy and generosity, and anything that makes people feel that they have been benefited. Okay, it is also an internal thing. It's all about having all sentient beings as your object of concern. Okay, and empathy and fellowship. Okay, if today I was trying to bring the Dharma to someone who enjoys killing, okay, obviously I need to approach this particular person, you could say strategically, right? First of all, I'd work slowly in praising the joys of life, praising the value of life, instead of saying, hey, you cannot kill. If you kill, you'll be born in hell. I'm sure if you say that, none of your friends will turn into Buddhism, okay? But if you encourage them and use a positive way of explaining the value of life, then of course soon this person will realize that what he or she is taking away is so important. And slowly this person will be affected, okay? So there are many ways of finding empathy and fellowship. Yeah, for those who engage in corporate affairs, of course, the type of topics we talk about must be related to the field for them to feel that, hey, I can trust this person because he's speaking on the same page. Anything to make people feel that they are part of you, you are part of they. Anything that takes down the barriers between people are fellowship. Okay? So don't think that by being Blia members and doing things which seem a little bit different from the traditional teachings of Buddhism is bad. Because sometimes we need to go out of our way to make us feel more human to the outside world. Okay? More real to the outside world. So there are many different things we can do to make people feel at home. Okay, so let's read the next line by Venerable Master. Has anyone read the universal chapter of Avalokitesvara Bodhisattva of the Lotus Sutra, Pu Menping? Yeah, who here has recited Pumenping? Yeah, I mean, I'm sure most of us have, right? Because we've participated in the group cultivation services, Gongxiu. So most of us have recited it, right? So what happens during this particular sutra? What does Avalokitesvara Bodhisattva do? He transforms himself into the different forms which are required to liberate sentient beings. He turns into the Brahman, he turns into the king, he turns into the great, you could say, prime minister, and so forth. He turns into the boy, the girl, right? So we need to be able to fit in, simply speaking, to be able to make people feel that they have no difference to us. Okay, so these are many different ways of finding ways to bring people to a better place. Okay, and this is much better than negative sanctions, which many traditional Buddhists probably cannot find their way out of. Okay, so it's like you do this, you have that. Okay, we have a particular sutra which talks about the negative sanctions of drinking alcohol. They say that if you drink alcohol, you will have no hands for 500 lifetimes. I mean, who will become Buddhist if you use this, right? And we have the different rules of engagement with nuns, right? The 8 heavy rules which forbid women to be better off than males. But if this was the case, then Foguan-san will not happen. Because we see that there are so many Buddhist nuns in Foguan-san that do such a great job. Manka-fa-si will not happen, right? Man-mu-fa-si will not happen. Miao-mu-fa-si. And if this is the case, then how would Singapore Foguan-san come into place? It will never come into fruition. So because of these negative sanctions, Buddhism has been impeded by dogmatism. And as a result, Venerable Master has responded to this quite heavily with his own interpretations of the Dharma. It tells us one very important thing. It tells us that the Buddhism that we practice now should be life-affirming. So this is to the second point. Okay, we know that a lot of Buddhism in the past says you can't do that, you can't do that. As Buddhist monks and nuns, you cannot observe musical performances. Well, if we were too dogmatic about this point, then all of us will be breaking the precept, because we encourage lay members to propagate the Dharma through music, right? It doesn't make sense. But we always forget that even things like the incense anthem, Luo Xiang Zhan, this was the most, you could say, popular music in the Tang Dynasty. It was in. It was cool. Right? So, this is like rock music in today's standards. So don't think that trying to sing the Dharma with today's tunes goes against the Dharma. Because we all know that with music we can carry our reverence, our emotions, our kind of like commitment to the Dharma. But we do so in today's language. We do so in a way where people can accept it. So that's why Venerable Master has allowed us all to use music to propagate the Dharma. This is one very good example of not being dogmatic about this particular precept. Okay? And likewise, with the interaction between males and females, we know that in the past, many Buddhists will shun upon the idea of monks and nuns being able to be in the same organization. Okay, we have traditional organizations where men are men and women are women. Okay, but if this was the case, then how would Foguan-san happen? It will never happen. Okay, so Venerable Master has reformulated the idea of the difference between monks and nuns in today's world. Okay, we know that in today's world, the interaction between males and females have become more lax. It is not as stringent as it used to be. So anything that falls under healthy social relationships between male and female and healthy interactions is okay. Okay? So because of this, we no longer have the type of, you could say, rigidness of how we practice this particular precept. Yeah? And in today's society, if you were to uphold the type of sanctions against females, unfortunately, there are so many modern thinking people who because of this will be turned away from Buddhism. Because even the Buddha himself said, Buddhism is all about equality. It's about equality of human beings, be it female, male, poor, rich. Okay, so this is actually more in tune with the original intent of the Buddha. Okay, so from here we know that the spirit is more important than the mode. Okay, so in retrospect, we know that negative sanctions turn people off. Okay. Secondly, we know that social norms and cultures have changed over time. Imagine if we held fast to the idea of alms taking. Yeah, in the past, monks and nuns must take alms. Secondly, they must eat before noon. But what happens if today, us as monastics, we take our bowls and go around Pango Place trying to beg for alms? What will happen? People will think this guy must be ... right? Okay? What happens if we are too dogmatic about eating after noon? Does everyone know why the precept against eating after noon came into being? There's a story of a particular disciple by the name of Keladayin, who is one of the foremost disciples of the Buddha. And before he became an arhat, he was actually, and even before the Buddha became a monk, they were good friends. And this particular disciple was a bit naughty, so he introduced the Buddha to all types of pleasures of life. And I'm sure you'll know what that means, okay? But after the Buddha awakened to the way, he came around and liberated his friend, accepted his friend as a disciple. Okay, so this person was very playful. So playful to the point where about 70% of all the Buddhist rules for monks and nuns were derived from this one person. Because the Buddha only instigated rules when people broke them. Okay, the very first rule was non-harm, not to harm anyone and to protect life. But because 12 years later, he saw that the Sangha was becoming impure, and because of that, he gave sanctions. Okay? So the sanction against eating after noon happened because one day, this particular disciple was getting hungry in the evening. Okay? So he went along his way, taking up his alms bowl, and arrived at a house, wanting to beg for food. Okay? But as he opened the door, as the owner of the house opened the door, realized that, hey, whoa, this guy looks funny, because it was dark, right? It was dusk. And this guy was black, so black that his name means like shiny black. Okay, shiny black. It was just like tar black. And his eyes, being Indian, was very white. So upon opening the door, this householder was shocked. Oh no, this is a ghost, because he does not look like a human. I cannot see any other features apart from the dark skin, the white eyes, and shiny skin. So because of this, this lady happened to be pregnant. And because upon seeing this disciple of the Buddha beg for food, she had a miscarriage. Okay? And apart from this, there have been many instances where disciples of the Buddha begged for food at very inappropriate times, causing lay people to having to go out of their way to prepare food. And as a result, only then did the Buddha decide to instill this law. Okay? There are also very interesting laws against the way we go for alms rounds, yeah? So one day, this disciple of the Buddha, Keladayin, he got happy. So instead of walking normally for his alms rounds, he thought, hey, the Buddha never said that we cannot run. So he thought to himself, okay, let's have fun while we're at it. So when he went on his alms, when everyone was going nice and elegantly, as most monks should do, he ran. And very soon he realized that he could finish his alms rounds in less time than everyone else. Okay? But upon the Buddha finding out that he was causing trouble, he set down the rule that you cannot run for your alms. Okay? Well, then this disciple thought, okay, fine. The next day, he was like, okay, I cannot run for my alms. I will hop for my alms. So then this monk, he started hopping around to collect, right? And upon hearing this, the Buddha, of course, in reaction to this, set the precept against hopping for alms. Yeah, and this disciple thought, okay, fine, the Buddha said I cannot run, I cannot hop, but he didn't say I cannot crawl. So there he goes on his way, crawling for his alms. So as you can see, a lot of the precepts are set because of infringements in what we consider ethical or righteous or wholesome behavior. Okay, but it is only to allow us to pave the way to a better life. Okay, but if we are too attached to the mode and not the spirit, and not see the spirit behind it, unfortunately we will not be able to live the full spirit behind it. Okay, especially in this day and age. Okay, if we were to eat alms, we will not be able to work until the late hours of night, which most monastics nowadays have to be able to get the work done in propagating the Dharma. Okay, so many times things are set for a particular social and cultural environment, and when things change, precepts need to be changed as well. So Venerable Master has pretty much summed up everything that we have mentioned, yeah? Okay, so we know that Venerable Master has tried to modernize the precepts. Okay, things like the Four Noble Truths. Instead of just focusing on the suffering of life, he has turned this into the vow to save sentient beings. Yeah. So let's go through a bit quicker. So with the truth of suffering, instead of saying that okay, life is full of suffering, he says that we need to make the 4 universal vows. Okay, the first one being to liberate sentient beings. Okay. Secondly, of the truth of the cause of suffering. Okay, he also makes the vows that we need to eradicate all afflictions. Okay, thirdly, the truth of the path. We need to learn all inexhaustible dharmas so that we are able to help others find the way to truth. Okay, and finally, with the truth of the cessation of suffering, of course, the Venerable Master says that we need to make an active vow to attain Buddhahood for the sake of all sentient beings. So from this we can see that what is passive needs to become active in realization of the Bodhisattva path. Okay? And he also talks about the 3 acts of goodness. Okay, let's read this together. If you can achieve these 3 actions, you have pretty much purified your karma of body, speech and mind. Okay, this is so easily understood by primary students that does Singapore go into the schools and promote this type of teaching, the 3 acts of goodness? Because in Australia and in New Zealand, we do have certain circumstances where we can go into the schools and promote this type of thing. But imagine if we did not use the 3 acts of goodness and we use like Buddhist teachings, it will be a different story. So we can see that with the 3 acts of goodness, it's very flexible. It can find its way into any different type of situation because it takes away the baggage which is originally related to Buddhism. So Venerable Master has been able to move many different types of people because of the 3 acts of goodness. And the 4 givings can also be considered the 4 immeasurable state of mind: loving kindness, appreciative joy, compassion, and equanimity, 慈悲喜舍. Okay, the verse which we recite before the meals. Yeah. First of all, give other people's faith. How do we do so? Easy. We speak words which motivate people, which give people inspiration. Yeah. How do we give people joy? Yeah. We should rejoice in anything that they have done well. So we praise people for what they have done. Yeah. How do we give people hope? Yeah. When people are in a dire straits, we give them words which can give them the type of hope to be able to overcome their issues and give them the Dharma which is required. How do we give people convenience? This requires a mind which is able to let go of the sense of I, to renounce our own self-ego and self-conceit, to be able to give people everything that we have, okay? To give people conditions for them to achieve the greater good, to give people conditions, yeah? So there are many ways where the Dharma that Venerable Master is preaching is 100% tied with original teachings, but has repackaged them in a way which are understandable and able to be applied by the modern person. Yeah. So we know that the modern formulations are something which the Master has done, has formulated for the sake of the modern world. Okay. And as we all know, as Foguang people, time and time again, we are reminded of the ideals of the Fogwangyan. Okay, so what is the ideal of the Fogwangyan? Okay, so why do we need to recite this? Why do we need to recite this? This is none other than giving. It is none other than the complete practice of giving without the idea of gift, giver, or receiver. The glory goes to the Buddha. Why? Because if today we had not had the fortune of coming into contact with the Buddha's teachings, we would not know how to live better. Okay? Today, if all our Dharma brothers and sisters did not help us along the way, it would be very difficult for us to accomplish the way. Okay? The benefit needs to go to society. Everything we do, we transfer our blessings and merits for the betterment of society. Otherwise, why else will we live, right? There is no other higher purpose than to be able to benefit society, right? And of course, lastly, we need to transfer our merits to the devotees. Why? Because devotees support the monastery. And because devotees support the monastery, we are able to bring more Dharma to people. So it's reciprocal. So from here we see that everything we do is not because of I. It is because of different causes and conditions. And as such, we can lessen the attachment to I. This is none other than giving in its full form. Okay? So I guess I have spoken a lot about the Venerable Master's modernization of the precepts and trying to adapt it to the modern world. Okay? Are there one or two questions before we finish today? Does anyone have any input to Venerable Master's modernization of his teachings, of the Buddha's teachings? Yeah? Yes? No? Okay. If not, I guess time is up, time is short. Okay. Most importantly is that we need to have faith in the teachings of the Venerable Master, in being able to apply what has been said many years ago, but has been said in a way which is understandable by modern society. So with this, I'd like to pass on my blessings. Hope that everyone can find joy in the Dharma and be able to enjoy a peaceful and joyful life. Thank you.